To open session. This is the Albany Unified School District Board of Education regular meeting, April 16th. May we have a roll call?
President Trutain.
Here.
Vice President Doss.
Here.
Trustee Clark.
Here.
Trustee Hinckley.
Here.
Trustee Duran.
Here.
Student Board Member Weinstein.
Here.
Student Board Member Mala.
Here.
Thank you. May we have the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready to begin.
Thank you. Okay. Now we'll have the reading of the AUSD mission and vision statement and the Board of Education meeting norms.
The mission of Albany Unified School District is to provide excellent public education that empowers all to achieve their fullest potential as productive citizens. AUSD is committed to create comprehensive learning opportunities in a safe, supportive, and collaborative environment, addressing the individual needs of each student.
Meeting norms maintain a focus on what is best for our students. Show respect, never dismiss/devalue others. Be willing to compromise, disagree when necessary, agreeably. Make a commitment to effective deliberation, each one listening with an open mind, while others are allowed to express their points of view. Participate by building on the thoughts of a fellow board member. Make a commitment to open communication and honesty, no surprises. Commit the time necessary to govern effectively. Be collaborative. Maintain confidentiality, which leads to the building of trust. Look upon history as lessons learned. Focus on the present and the future.
Thank you, student board members. The board took action to lay off classified employees per Education Code 45114, 45117, and 45308 in closed session. And now we need to consider the agenda. I myself would like to pull off the personnel assignment order from the consent calendar. Does any other board member have a change or modification to the agenda? See none, can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, and with that, we move on to our fun spot, the Albany Children's Center Spotlight.
Thank you, President Trutain, members of the board and the community. I always enjoy when we can do an annual spotlight, and to have the Albany Children's Center do their spotlight this month is always a treat. I enjoy going to the Albany Children's Center, visiting classrooms and seeing the students and staff. So I'm going to turn this over to Anna Mansker, who is our director of the Albany Children's Center, and as you can see, they have earned a 5-star rating. Ms. Mansker.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm very excited to be here for our spotlight today, to be able to share something that we are very, very proud of at Albany Children's Center. And yes, we recently earned a 5-star rating, and I thought I'd just sort of take us through this process so that we can inform you, our wonderful board, as well as our community about what it means for a preschool program to earn a 5-star rating. Okay, so the 5-star rating comes through the Quality Rating Improvement System, which is the QRIS. A QRIS is a sort of a systematic approach that looks at preschool programs nationwide. It was established in 1998, and approximately 30 states in the United States implement the QRIS rating system in early child care settings across our nation. The other 20 states are in the process of putting together their own QRIS rating system. In California, we utilize what's called a quality framework hybrid matrix built on research-based standards to rate programs along 7 quality standards. And I'll take you through those 7 different standards. Each early care and education program in California needs to be rated every 2 years. When I say every early care and education program, those are the programs in which are funded by the state of California, so the public programs and Head Start programs as well. Other private agencies have an option, right, whether or not they want to participate. Okay, so I mentioned 7 different elements that are utilized in determining the rating system. The 5-star rating system, it's similar, built similarly to like a restaurant or hotel rating system, right? Between 1 and 5 stars. The 7 elements that we look at when we rate preschool programs are child observation, developmental and health screenings, the qualifications for the lead teachers, effective teacher-child interactions, or what are called the class assessments. We look at ratios and group size, the program environment rating scale, or the ECHRs, and the director qualifications. Okay, so Albany Children's Center received the first rating in 2016, which was about a year before I came, and then we just had this latest rating happen over this past summer, and it was finalized September 2018. The first element is child observation, and this element really looks to see what the programs, the preschool and early care and education programs have in place for observing young children and using those observations to guide instruction and to communicate with families. Both in 2016 as well as in 2018, Albany Children's Center has earned 5 points in this element. We utilize the DRDP, which stands for the Desired Results Developmental Profile. It's somewhat similar to like preschool standards, right? There are approximately 45 developmental measures in which the children are observed and assessed and placed on the developmental continuum. These assessments and ratings are uploaded into what was DRDP Tech, which is now called DRDP Online. Those results are used to inform the curriculum planning, and the parents and guardians are offered parent-teacher conferences twice a year. Okay, the second element is the developmental and health screenings. This whole QRAS process really looks at the whole child, right, and the whole program. And for this element, we're really looking at the health and well-being of the kids in our care. In 2016, we received 1 point. This last time, we were able to bring it up to 5 points. This is because when the children enter our programs, part of the enrollment process is collecting the physician's health document. That was happening in 2016 as well. What we've been able to do since then in our learning is partner with Albany Unified School District to make sure that we're able to bring in vision and hearing screenings for all of the children in our care annually. We also work with our families in completing what's called an ASQ or an ASQSC. It's essentially a process in which we communicate with families to see how the children are doing social emotionally. The piece that comes along with it, right, is then if anything stands out or if families are really showing a need for some early interventions or supports, we can work with other agencies within Alameda County or within the school district itself to provide those supports. Okay, The third element is the qualifications for our lead teachers. We were able to receive 5 out of 5 points here as well because all of our lead teachers have bachelor's degrees and 24 units of early childhood education. Additionally, they are taking 21 hours of professional growth, professional development every year or more. Element 4 is the class assessments. These assessments are done by approved assessors from Alameda County who come into the classrooms and observe. And what they're really looking for are the interactions between the adults and the children. The interactions are ranked in 3 different areas. So they're looking at emotional support. So do the kids feel safe and happy? Right, which is sort of that first tier. The second tier they're looking at is the classroom organization. Has the teachers, they developed a structure and a schedule of the day that really makes sense and is in support of the children in their care. And then the final element, which is the one that's most challenging for preschools across the nation to achieve, is the instructional support. So this is where the observers are really looking to ensure that the conversations that the teachers are having with the young children go beyond the surface, right? That they are engaging with kids in a developmentally appropriate way that helps to grow their learning. Okay, element 5 is ratios and group size, and we remain at 4 out of 5 points here. This is the one place that we didn't get 5 points, and we are not alone. California is looking at revising the QRIS system, and I think many things will change, but this is one of the elements that I've been told will absolutely change, and it's because this is not in alignment with licensing, right? So essentially, we do get 4 of the points, right? And we get those points because we do maintain a 1-to-8 ratio, right? That part is in alignment with licensing. We make sure that there's at least 1 adult for every 8 students in our care. The final component, however, is that the current California QRIS system says there should be no more than 20 children in any group size. However, one of our classrooms is licensed for 24 children. In fact, many preschool classrooms across California are licensed for 24 children. We maintain that 8-to-1 ratio. We are, in alignment with the state in that regards. However, that particular class is larger than 20. All right, element 6 is the environmental rating scale, or ECRS. This is an evaluation instrument that's utilized to evaluate preschool classrooms, looking to see that the space and furnishings are safe, that there's child display, that things are organized in a way that the children can build their self-reliance, they can put the toys away, they can get the toys and tools and instructional materials that they need on their own, that the room is arranged in a way that there are different interest areas, the interaction is appropriate and professional and instructional, that there is a program structure, and that the classroom has the ability to not just support the children, but to support the families and staff as well. And we are able to earn 5 points there. Finally, element 7 is the director qualifications. And both in 2016 as well as now in 2018, we were able to earn the 5 points because I have a master's degree and an administrative credential, and I also complete the 21 hours of professional development annually. So yay, we earned our 5 stars, and we are very happy. It's very exciting, and it's extremely unusual for early care and education programs to earn the 5 stars. And so we are very happy that we were able to do so, and we are hoping to be able to continue that. Okay.
Thank you so much, Director Mansker. We're all very proud of you and all of your staff for these great efforts. Thank you.
Yes, it's definitely a team effort. I have a wonderful team. Very happy to be here. Thank
And
you.
I see some of them here tonight, yes. Okay, and that brings us down to the consent calendar. So I mentioned that I was going to move off the personnel assignment order from that, so we'll be asking for a vote on the consent calendar with just the 1B, the Memorandum of Understanding with Contra Costa Office of Education, and for the item 2, the overnight field trip of Marin Elementary to Gillespie Youth Camp. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the changes mentioned.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Then we move to the personnel assignment order. Superintendent Williams?
Thank you, President Tertain, members of the board, and the Albany community. It is my pleasure to bring to the board our new Director of Special Education Student Services. I'd like to introduce you to Veronica Bedoya Michael. And I would like to read actually part of her bio because while I thought about writing something, the way she wrote it was really says an awful lot about her. So if you'll indulge me a little bit. Because her parents could not pursue their education beyond the 8th grade, they made Veronica and her 3 siblings education a top priority. Between the four of them, they represent 4 UCs, 1 CSU, and 1 private university. She had the amazing opportunity to go to and graduate from KALB Berkeley. Go Bears. She has been an educator for the past 27 years. Throughout her career, she's worked with many student groups: primary, upper grades, middle school, high school, alternative education, adult ESL students, migrant students, special education students, GATE students, and English learner students. She's been a classroom teacher, a math coach, a mentor teacher, a site principal, a program coordinator, and a program director. Throughout her career, she says the most satisfying aspect of her work is to be able to advocate for students so they may progress to their educational endeavors. And then I'm going to try my best Spanish here. She said to the Spanish-speaking families of AUSD, she says, "Estoy aquí para ayudarte en todo lo que pueda." I am here to assist you in any way I can. So she's very excited to be here in Albany. We're, just so you know that we posted the position. We had several applicants. We screened them. She went through 2 rounds of interview. We did extensive background checks and reference checks. And I am very honored to bring to the board Veronica Bedoya Michael as our new director. So welcome.
Thank you, Superintendent Williams, and thank you, Board of Trustees, and our student members. I just wanted to say that I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to be back in the East Bay. Loved my time at Cal and have a real affinity for the East Bay. My daughter is a freshman at San Francisco State, so we're keeping it in the family. And I'm just really honored and privileged to have the opportunity to serve you, bring my experience, my skill set to Albany, and I look forward to a really positive, productive tenure here. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Welcome, Director Michael. We're very glad to have you. Thank you.
Oh, I think it says a lot. You know, UC Berkeley is amazing. St. Mary's is better. So I think that's all. But welcome.
And I think bringing the diversity of language is so important as well. So I'd like to acknowledge you for that as well.
So you need to vote on this as well.
Okay, so now we need a vote to accept the entire personnel assignment order. Can I get a motion? Well, okay, we need to move to accept the PAO.
Yeah. That's the motion you wanted, right?
Yeah.
I move to accept the entire personnel order.
A second.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that moves us to board and superintendent reports.
Thank you, President Churtain. As many of you know, President Churtain, Board Member Michaela Weinstein, and I, and Patty Fujiwara went to Sacramento a couple of weeks ago to rally for education. On each one of your seats, you will see a insert that gives you an awful lot of information about what is needed for funding for California education and how we are woefully in this nation not in the top 10. We are 41st. These, we got some of these from the county, got about 1,500. We're going to be sending them out to each of our elementary sites and asking that they be put in the Friday folders so that every elementary parent in our district gets this. If I have any extras, I will give them out to the high school and the middle school. But I think we need to get the word out that we need to not rest on our laurels. We need to fight for adequate funding of education. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Williams. I have one item, which the board might remember approving overnight field trip for our National Ocean Sciences Bowl team to go to Washington, D.C. Well, they won. They are the top in the nation. And you'll find the news item on the front page of our website. They brought home a big trophy and even bigger smiles. I think they'll be able to get some special experience with a variety of oceanographic institutions and learn about local scientific and conservation efforts, especially through the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So they have some things to look forward to. Because their names are listed in the press release, I think it's appropriate that we name them. It was the team is Evan Zong, Nathan Skinner, Ruby Tang, James Hort, and Maria Sophia Fedek. Oh, that's my own. All right. Board members? Not, then we'll move to the student board member report.
Thank you. So at Ocean View, the Ocean View temporary housing update will be at 6:30 in the library. At Marin, the Marin Midnight Basketball League is back for adults, and so basketball will be played on Monday nights from 8 to 10 at Albany High School in the gym, and all proceeds will go to the Marin PTA, and I believe Vice President Doss will be in attendance.
Yes, I will be there. So if you want to come loose, come join us.
Parent Education Night will be held on April 14th, and the topic is still to be determined. At Cornell, tomorrow is the last day to donate to the fundraiser Pennies for Patients for blood cancer through the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. For all elementary schools, the band extravaganza will be at Albany High School at 7 p.m., and School Care will be hosting Soul Care, a fundraiser that they say will to mingle and sparkle, eat and greet, drink and dance. And the event will take place on April 27th at 7 p.m. and all proceeds will benefit School Care.
The AMS open house is coming up. Come see the wonderful work our middle schoolers have been creating. Middle schoolers also attended the middle school movie night over spring break on April 11th, where they watched Napoleon Dynamite. At Albany High School, the Science Olympiad team placed 5th out of 35 at state championships. Clubs will be selling food on Friday, April 19th for International Food Day. And tomorrow, Wednesday, April 17th, students will attend the Community College Fair to learn about opportunities after high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go back to Superintendent
Thank you.
Williams.
I'm so sorry. I really wanted to say this. I forgot this. On this past Saturday, there were 7 of our Albany Middle School students who were honored by at the 15th Annual African American Student Achievement Awards, and this is put on annually by the African American Regional Education Alliances. And these students who are recognized are as follows: Cynthia Kamau, Nathaniel Mahari, Alice Privatera, Kenneth Stewart, Taj Thompson, Nico West, and Robert Yared. They were chosen by this group to be honored, and the ceremony is amazing. And they're honored every year. They go to Chabot College. So I really want to congratulate those 7 middle school students.
Yes. That brings us to persons to address the board on matters not on the agenda. If anyone would like to speak for 3 minutes, matters not on the agenda, please come to the podium. Also, I want to encourage all speakers to fill out a speaker slip at the back, just so we'll have a record of your name. You don't have to, but it is helpful if we need to check back with you on an issue or get you more information. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of items. The first one is one that most of you are already familiar with. We are trying to bring the KDFC Playground Pop-Ups, the musical event by the local or Bay Area classical music station. And as of right now, we are planning on bringing it on Thursday, May 16th. And I wanted to clarify, because apparently it wasn't clear in the email that I sent, that it is free to the school. There is no cost whatsoever. The second one is I will be working with the Chief Engagement Officer at KDFC to make that happen and eventually pass the control over to the principal at Ocean View. And the third thing is that if possible, we'll try to bring it also to Cornell and Marin elementary schools. And if it's not possible to do it this year because we're almost at year's end, then we can try to make it happen the following year. The second item is that I've been in contact. Some of you know that I participated in the stakeholder meetings in the search for the new superintendent, your successor. And one of the items that came up frequently in many of the meetings was the Instagram incident that took place here a couple of years ago. And it occurred to me that it is the kind of event for which, unless we go through it, there is no real preparation ahead of time. Hindsight is 2020, but there is this organization called Facing History and Ourselves, and I believe that 2 Albany students have already worked with them in the past, possibly, I'm not sure, but I'm trying to see if they'll be able to partner with the school and bring training to administrators, teachers, and students on issues of race and equity. The only caveat is that it is possible that they charge, and so if they do, I'm not so inclined to bring a proposal in the middle of budget cuts. But if it seems reasonable, I'll bring it so that you at least can consider it. And that's it. One last thing, because I still have 20 seconds, is that my daughter actually went to school to Albany Children's Center, and she had a wonderful experience. And the teacher who replaced our instructor, Joanne Scarpa, Mary Rhodes, she is fantastic, and she lives up to her name. She's the Rhodes Scholar of preschool special education, so shout out to her. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing the KDFC program to, working to bring that to Ocean View and to the other elementary schools. It's great when we have community members that participate and bring more richness into to our students.
Yeah, I was excited to read that email. Greatly appreciate it. And I second, your sentiments about ACC. My youngest daughter currently goes there, and it's been an amazing experience. Everybody's really friendly. Even though I had to pick her up a little early today. But still, amazing experience. You guys are doing a great job over there.
Thank you, Mr. Castillo-McIntyre. I think that brings us now to review and action. Our first item is through curriculum instruction and assessment, the board policy 5144 on discipline.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to our Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, Marie Williams.
Good evening, Superintendent Williams, Board President Trutain, board members, members of the community. This evening I am bringing Discipline Board Policy 5144 back for your review and potential approval. At the last meeting, questions were raised regarding some of the content of the board policy. Those additional changes have been reflected in what you see this evening, highlighted in yellow, so I won't go through those, but you see those. And also, I think I did try to provide additional information about what those changes were in the detail, so you don't have to read through the whole policy. In the questions that I received on Monday, there were two other questions that came forward, so if it pleased the board, we could resolve those two this evening and approve this board policy. The first question was having to do with the amount of time between reviewing the site level rules. As written currently, the board policy, the AR, actually the administrative regulation, indicates that the site level rules would be reviewed at least once every 4 years, excuse me. And there was a question about if that was too much time. So I did reach out to our principal at the high school and our principal at the middle school to ask about their practice around reviewing site level disciplinary rules, and both confirmed that at least annually, there is some sort of checking back in around sort of the matrix at the middle school. The principal indicated that throughout the year, they're sort of keeping track of what appears to be working and not working, and that then that provides an opportunity, right, to sort of do some tweaking as the process is going forward. But if it pleased the board, if the board would like to change the requirement from a 4-year review of site level rules to having that occur more frequently, you let me know that and I would make that change. And then the second was having to do with detention after school, which is quite the hot topic in this board policy. And so at the last meeting, the question was around whether or not providing the 1-day advance notice would hinder site administrators in administering after-school detention as a disciplinary strategy. As I said, I did go back and talk to our district leadership team. We had much discussion and agreed that the 1-day advance notice would not hinder sites in administering after-school detention as a strategy. However, there now is a question about if we were to provide that notice on the same day, would it be appropriate to assign that as a strategy on the same day? So again, if that is the pleasure of the board, we could make that change. We've talked a lot about detention in this board policy, and so these are two questions that remain for you to provide me guidance on, and hopefully we can approve this board policy this evening.
Open it up to discussion from the board.
I was actually the one that raised those questions, and because you went back to the administrators and found out if they feel that it's sufficient at this time, then and what they're doing addresses any issue that comes up ongoing, then I'm fine with that. We can leave it like that.
Great. Okay. Is that for both, or would that?
It's for both.
Okay.
I was going to make a motion, but
I had just one small comment, which is, you know, the board just formed the policy committee about a year ago, no longer than a year and a half. And I would really like to see the policy committee kind of strategize about what policies they're reviewing, you know, first. And, you know, sometimes there's a legal change that make something really come to the top of the stack, and I would like to see them take an active role in managing what policies we are looking at. That's all. Go ahead. Can I get a motion?
yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we approve board policy 5144.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That moves us to the overnight field trip, Albany High School Environmental Design, Science, Engineering, and Technology Program.
So this field trip is coming to you as a review and action item and not as a consent item because this trip was previously approved and then because of some fires was put off, but the location was different. So we just erred on the side of caution and are bringing this forward to you. It's a routine request for our high school students to make an overnight field trip. I don't have any more to say about that and would take a motion or any questions that you have at this time.
I move that we approve this field trip as stated here at Mount Tamalpais.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. All right. We come to Student Services Memorandum of Understanding between Alameda County Office of Education and Albany Unified School District.
Go for it.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Karen Nerheim, our Director of Student Services.
You can pass it.
Good evening, Superintendent Williams, President Trutain, and our trustees and community members. Our first item is a memorandum of understanding between the Alameda County Office of Education and our school district. We have had a robust 2P program, which is tobacco use prevention education, for the last 2 years in association with Alameda County Office of Ed. And at the high school, it is led beautifully by Josette Wheaton, and at the middle school, it is led by Principal Deborah Brill. And so for the upcoming grant that we will be applying for 2020 through 2023, we are asking for this memorandum of understanding, which we have not had in the previous 2 years. And the purpose of this is so that the two people who are the coordinators are not considered subcontractors of ACOE. There are employees, and so this kind of takes some of the weight off ACOE and the coordinator so that we know there are employees. It's a memorandum of understanding. There are employees. Nothing changes with the funding. This is fully funded by Alameda County Office of Education and is completely free for us, all the services they provide. So my hope is that we can go forward with it.
Board, any questions or discussions? I remember having Josette and the Tupe students come and give us a spotlight a few meetings ago, and I think they're doing great work. I really appreciate having this program in our schools.
Thank you.
I move that we approve of this memorandum of understanding.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. But that moves us to your next item, Director Nerheim, the Board Policy 5117, Interdistrict Attendance.
Thank you so much. This item has quite a lengthy backup, and I don't want to just read it to you because you all will be discussing. So I think I'm just going to start with the backup and take us through some highlights. And I really want to thank Assistant Superintendent Williams. We worked on this together. She generously helped me with this aspect because we wanted to make sure that I wanted to make sure that it was complete and gave you all the information. And since Assistant Superintendent Williams had also been in this position before me, I wanted to tap into her amazing institutional memory. So that having been said, the background information for this is that at a previous board meeting, a board member asked that Board Policy and Administrative Regulation 5117, interdistrict attendance, be agendized for discussion by the governing board in order to discuss the following questions. The first question was, can the requirement that AUSD employees must work at least 0.40 FTE or city employees must work at least 20 hours to be eligible for interdistrict permit approval be eliminated? That was the first question. The second question was with respect to Board Policy 5117 and the third priority for interdistrict permit approval, which states in part to ensure educational continuity of students during a district fiscal crisis, can this directive be relaxed? And then the third and final question was, are the interdistrict transfer agreements for 5 years? I would like to start with the third, because I think it's the easiest to talk about. Let's start easy and build our way. Alameda County, several districts in Alameda County have a no more than 5-year grade span agreement. So several of the districts in Alameda County have agreed that you will apply for an interdistrict transfer. Let's say you apply for it in kinder. The next time you would need to apply for it would be when you transfer from one grade span to the next. So you would go all the way through 5th grade, and I realize that's 6 years, but kinder is not compulsory. So I'm assuming they're just counting from 1st to 5th, but I heard it, so thank you. So from 5th to 6th, you would apply again, and then from 8th to 9th, you would apply again. And that's for several districts in Alameda County. I was told not all of them, and I did not research which ones are not participating, because we are. The other counties that we participate with, it's yearly. So every year, annually, you need to apply for your interdistrict permit every single year. That's the third question. Going back to the first question, again, this is in order of difficulty. Can the requirement that AUSD employees work at least .40 or city employees must work at least 20 hours be eligible for interdistrict permit approval be eliminated? So in the work that we did, per California Ed Code 48204, a school district may deem a pupil to have complied with the residency requirements for school attendance in the school district if at least one parent or the legal guardian of the pupil is physically employed within the boundaries of that school district for a minimum of 10 hours during the school week. While this education code does not require the school districts within which at least one parent or guardian of a pupil is employed to admit the pupil, so again, we're not required to accept, but a school district shall not refuse to admit a pupil on the basis of race, ethnicity, sex, parental income, scholastic achievement, or any other arbitrary consideration. So yes, we can move it down to 10, but it can't be eliminated completely. Okay? Then the final question, which is, sorry.
Sorry, is now a good time to ask this?
Absolutely.
Okay. Why can't it be eliminated completely?
Because per the code, it needs to be a minimum of 10 hours.
Which code? Which code?
Per California Ed Code 48204,
Just, sorry, I know it's tough, but just ignore the crowd.
it's okay. A school district may deem a pupil to have complied with the residency requirements for school attendance in the school district if at least one parent or legal guardian of the pupil is physically employed within the boundaries of that school district for a minimum of 10 hours during the school week. So the fact that it is may, I mean, Ms. Williams, can I ask for your assistance with this portion?
I think what's confusing is any AUSD employee who works any amount of time is eligible to the same degree that anybody else is eligible for an interdistrict transfer permit.
Yeah, but then
That's what's misleading. What you're saying is any of them are eligible. What the real way to phrase this question is how can we set that hourly limit in order to give them preference over other eligible students?
Right, because if you're an employee, you're in a different spot on the scale when you're applying for the interdistrict transfer. Anybody can apply for it, no matter where they, But if you're an employee, you're on a different, which increases your chances of getting the student in. You work here, you want your student to attend school. I'm just trying to, yeah.
So currently, our board policy and the practice is that working here would sort of satisfy one part of the requirement. Then the second part of the requirement currently is that you would work at least 0.4 FTE in the district. So right now, that would limit, for example, if you were a walk-on coach, if you were an athletic coach, or if you were maybe a sub-para educator. You're considered an employee of the district, but you're not currently, according to our board policy, you wouldn't be eligible. You would be eligible in priority 5, which is everybody and anybody, but in terms of the first priority, you wouldn't be considered eligible because you're not meeting the FTE requirement that we have set in priority 1.
I see. So thank you, because that helps me understand. So now that I understand that, we can kind of go through the process of fixing that.
And my understanding that it was a 10-hour minimum requirement. So you have to be at least 10 hours. But you do not have to be a 0.4.
Well, our board policy requires that you be 0.4, right?
Correct, but that's why why the discussion is.
Yeah.
Right.
To see if that is something the board would like to continue.
Did you want to go ahead and deal with the third question before we have a more general discussion?
That'd be great, thank you. Okay. So with respect to Board Policy 5117 and the third priority for interdistrict permit approval, which states in part to ensure educational continuity of students, during a fiscal crisis, can this directive be relaxed? So I am going to read directly from the board backup. Per Assembly Bill 2826, pupil enrollment and interdistrict attendance, which became effective January 1st, 2019, a school district of residence or school district of enrollment shall not rescind existing transfer permits for pupils after June 30th following the completion of grade 10 or for pupils in grade 11 or 12. In response to this bill being passed, effective January 1st, the Alameda County Office of Ed provided a training in March 2019 on interdistrict transfers, and this was presented by Lozano Smith, attorneys at law, and all of the people that attended were people like me and my job alikes in districts throughout Alameda County. During the presentation, the following information was shared. Once a student is admitted, the district may not deny him or her continued attendance because of overcrowded facilities at a relevant grade level. Per Alameda County Office of Education interdistrict attendance agreements, permits are effective through the highest grade offered at the school and renewals only occur at the grade span changes. Now that's Alameda. That's not all of the districts that we invite, new enrollees, prospective Albany students. But it was critical, and what they focused on is if we become crowded, we then can't rescind the offer because of space. And so that was a big one for a lot of us, a lot of districts. Our administrative regulation 5117 states that the board believes in educational continuity and feels that an inter-district permit students once granted a non-temporary. And I just want to review with the board that one of the things that's been challenging, I think at times to understand is if I am an Albany student, let's say I attend Albany High School, and I move outside of Albany, I can apply for a temporary inter-district permit to finish the year. But then at the beginning of the next school year, I have to apply again for a permanent one. And so that puts me again, I would be using the same priority list, but the temporary permit is for students who have moved out of the district during the school year, and non-temporary are all the others. So, once granted a non-temporary inter-district permit, they should not be exited except for violation of their inter-district attendance contract or under extraordinary circumstances. So if there was physical harm or the student was a victim of bullying, warranting a transfer. So we have tried to prepare as thoroughly as possible and answer all the board questions that came in. And so if it's okay with you, I'd like to turn it over to you for discussion.
Thank you, Director Nierheim. I think there will be some board discussion. Let me assess if there are people, community members here, people that want to speak on this item. Can I get a show of hands? Okay, yeah, just trying to prepare. Okay, so I saw 5 hands. Oh, okay. Okay, great. Okay, and back there. Okay, so board, go ahead, and we'll have some questions here, and then we'll hear what our community has to say.
I just have a clarifying question, because I think this predates the 3 of our tenure as a board. For question about relaxing the standards on the 3rd priority, can you explain what the intent of that question is, or what was it you were
Wasn't my
trying to figure
question.
out?
I can't.
It was my question.
Not the board question, but the
Oh, I'm
original.
sorry.
The one,
Sorry.
You mean, are the inter-district transfer agreements for 5 years?
No, with respect to board policy and the 3rd priority, which states in part to ensure education continuity, during a district fiscal crisis, can this directive be relaxed? I guess I'm trying to understand what was the intent of
Okay,
relaxing
yeah.
that. What does that mean to relax it?
Not my question, but I think I know what the intention was, which is that you could fill spaces in, like, say, elementary school, but then if your enrollment changed and if you were going to, you felt like your middle school was going to be overcrowded, then you could just exit the inter-district transfer students and refuse to continue their permit into 6th grade. So they would then have to find another school. So I think the intent was to try to control overcrowding and having lack of facilities or having to hire additional teachers.
Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, so many different things to say about this. One thing I was just based on that, you can't treat students that way. You can't use students as pieces to fix a budget or to fill spots, and then when you no longer need them, they have to go on about what they're doing. So we need to make adjustments to that right away, because you can't do students like that.
But I think that what is stated in our backup and with our questions is that you cannot deny a student continuity because of overcrowding. So I think that it's not an issue.
Definitely. So employees, speaking about the employees, I don't know, that seems really simple. If you are an employee of the school in any way, shape, or form, or you work for the city, your students should be able to go to. I mean, that one for me particularly. My mom worked for the city of Albany, which is why I graduated from Albany High. So the things that I learned at Albany High, the opportunities and the value, that I got from the education, it allowed me to be successful at the next level, which was college, and it allowed me to be successful at the next level after that, which was working. And so, all that happened, due to interdistrict transfers. When I look at this, I can imagine that there's a lot of other students, that are in my familiar position that will benefit from the education. And so I just want to make sure that parents only have to worry about the really important thing, which is getting their kids to school every day, making sure they get there, and making sure that their child has all the tools they need to be successful, and not worried about, the interdistrict transfer, things like that. Because I'm looking at if you move out of Albany during the year, then you have to inform the district that you're moving and things like that, right? And then once that is done, then you have to apply, again. And so, for example, this is not a real example. If you are a student and you're going to school and halfway through the year, something happens with your parents and your mom is no longer safe. So you and your mom have to move out of Albany in order to be safe, but you don't want to not go to school, so you're continuing going to school. That's a lot to deal with. And then you're thinking, oh, wait a minute, I got to do this interdistrict paperwork. That's kind of the last thing on your mind, right? So I think that we should ease that burden for parents, because there could be a lot of different reasons of why you're moving and things like that. And then I know it opens up a lot of other things where, then people will move in, stay for a little bit, and then move out in order to. But honestly, if you rent an apartment in Albany, it costs like $8,000 for the deposit, and then the rent's like $3,200. So if you really do all that just to get your kid to go to school here, well, cheers to you. Because it's expensive. And if you move to Albany and then realize, wow, it's really expensive to live here, I can't afford it anymore, your child shouldn't have to lose all their friends and change their entire life based on that, because then that's discriminatory, right? Because based on those things that we had, the list that you gave, we're not supposed to discriminate against people based on their income. But if their income changes, or if they can't really afford to live here, so they have to move, then we're telling, not only do you have to move and uproot your life, but you got to take your kid with you because you can't afford to live here, which then takes away from the diversity of the school and lots of other aspects. But we have to think about those things when we're making these policies and when we're approving them.
Other trustees, do you want to, before we take public comment?
Let's see, I see it as basically three areas. One is first the priorities. And for some reason before, we saw more in terms of what Alameda County says, et cetera. The numbers popped out at me in terms of 0.4 FTE or 20 hours working in the city as sort of arbitrary numbers. And I kind of wondered, where did they come from? And so for that reason, I was kind of saying, well, let's just get rid of those numbers in period, or do the minimum if there's a requirement. I'm not sure if it's a requirement or it's a recommendation. For example, the Alameda County, one of 10 hours. So was it employees or It was for employees.
That's not an Alameda County rule.
Oh, that's a state code, ed code. Okay, ed code. So do we need to follow the ed code to the law so that it would be 10 hours? I'm just asking. So, okay, if we do, and then I'm suggesting we go to that minimum. Okay,
see.
which is 10 hours.
Thank
In
you.
terms, and then Alameda, for the city of Albany, I would drop that too. Why are we saying that they have to work 20 hours? I would drop it to 10 hours too. In terms of the fourth priority, business owners, it says 12 months. That seems arbitrary to me too. Why don't we drop it to 1 month? So that's the first one. The second one was relaxing the educational continuity. And I have been attending I had attended several of the Budget Advisory Committee meetings, and I understand, I believe, what the discussion is about in terms of relaxing that educational continuity. And I did mention it that one of the committee's meetings that I was like Brian in the sense I didn't feel that I could relax that priority in the sense of letting students go after 5th grade, for example. I mean, the bottleneck is obviously at the middle school, and what do we do about that? And I think there are other ways we can address that issue so it doesn't become bottleneck. And so I think that's something for the staff to work on. So my personal feeling at this point is not to relax the educational continuity. I think it's that we should not be inviting students to come into our district, especially because we're in a fiscal crisis and we need the money. And then when we come to an area that presents a difficulty for us, then we let those students go. And then the third area, which I looked at later, which is important, is specifically around special education students. And to what degree we allow them to come in, but they can't come in if this is the situation, if we cannot address their needs. I understand we have fiscal constraints, but at the same time, we put up these barriers, and I think we are discriminating when we say you can't come because you have certain needs. So I have some feelings about that too.
I think we need some clarification on that point. We do not reject any special education student because they're in special education. It's only if there are health needs that we do not have the facilities for, that we cannot accept them.
It doesn't
Is
say
that
health
the
needs.
superintendent?
I want to say, if there are services that the student needs that we do not offer, then they wouldn't necessarily come to us, but they might be placed in another school within our SELPA, or another school
Okay,
district.
within the SELPA, but not here in Albany necessarily.
Correct. So for example, if there's a student in, let's say, Alameda Unified that they don't have the services for, but we do, then we would take that student. And if Alameda has services that we don't offer, then our student would go there. So it's an agreement within our SELPA, and it's for program.
Okay, and then there was another component to the special ed that said something regarding the testing. And if a student is tested and we cannot address their needs, then once again, we exit them to their home base. And once again, it puts parents in the position of not wanting to ask for testing then, because my child may have to leave.
So I want to make sure I understand what you're saying. So let me see if I can kind of explain it this way. If a student family moves into Albany and they have a student with special needs, and if we provide the services for them and then they move out of the district and go to, let's say they go to another city, if we provide the services and we have continuity of education, they can stay with us. The only time that we would not have a student come in is if they're already out of district and they want to come into our district and we do not offer those services, and we could say, we can't offer you those services, right? But if you live in Albany and you have a child who has a special need, if it's a program that we can't offer, we do it within the SELPA. So it's the out of district that if they're trying to come in. And I know I'm not making this really clear, and I wish Diane Marie were here that could kind of explain a little bit more detail, but did that kind of answer?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and let me just read this sentence and see. If a student is referred for a special education evaluation while under a previously approved, so they have an approved permit, but they're referred, say a teacher refers that child who is in the district with a permit and refers them for testing, the parent may worry that we may, because it says the district is responsible, et cetera, et cetera. If the district, the subsequent meeting will include representatives from both districts, and if we have the capacity in an existing program, the student will continue to attend school in the district of attendance, which would be, say, us. If not, the district of attendance will notify the special ed director of the district of residence and schedule a meeting to discuss the student's transition back to that school district.
I'd have to ask Diane Marie for much more clarification on that, because you mentioned 3 or 4 different things that might be a nuance that would, I'd have to ask her. I don't want to say something that's potentially could be not correct.
I want to make us all aware of the time, and we have community members that want to speak. So I wanted to invite them up to the podium, please, now.
I have my rides here, so I apologize. I'm not speaking for the Budget Committee. I'm not speaking for the union. I'm just speaking for myself. My name's Miriam, and I teach at Albany High. I think that Brian's comments go to the sort of heart of the ethical question. This is a very deep ethical situation, and it's not one of our own making. You know, we didn't decide that residency was the way you would organize school districts, or that rent would be as high as it is, or that the world would be ruled by capitalism, or any, you know, we're in this situation, forces out of our control. But being here, then that's the trick, is how to embrace our ethical responsibilities in an unethical world. So I just want to say that I support Clementina's idea of minimizing the restrictions to the minimum number of hours and the minimum amount of time. I think you could probably say that just anyone who works in the city is in that category. You don't really need a month requirement to that. If someone can establish that they have a job, then that's the job, right? And I'm not sure that the law requires you to have a time limit. So I agree with the idea of going generally to the minimum requirements. And I agree that we have to accept interdistrict transfer students for the perpetuity of their educational career. And then I think it's absolutely our responsibility to make it so that interdistrict transfer students are not second-class citizens in any way. But so this is how I look at it. Rather than being defensive against a potential of future facilities crowding, that we have to be willing to embrace as many students as we possibly can. This is just me as a teacher. I just want to teach. These are all kids. The fact that there's a table in my room every hour of the day that's empty drives me absolutely up the wall. There could be 4 kids sitting there every hour of every day. Why aren't they there? That makes me crazy. I want to teach them. I know they're out there somewhere. I just want to teach them. So let us have them, bring them in. And then they're ours, and we're all together in this. And if it comes to a time when we are not in declining enrollment, when our rents are not so high that people are fleeing the city, if that day comes and then we find that we are oversubscribed in our facilities, then that's a problem that we have to solve together. And it's the same problem we would have had if those happened to be Albany residents. It's just the same problem. So I feel like defending against facilities overcrowding at the expense of our opportunity to educate students today just doesn't make sense to me on any sort of moral level. And then there's the side effect. I'm not really seeing, although I take very much to heart, and I spent, a little bit of moments meditating on this question of, am I viewing the students as, sort of widgets that bring in money? It's more for me that in order to provide the lovely services that we have at Albany High and the electives that we have at Albany High, we need those tables full. And so that's the program I'm trying to provide, and the empty table represents lost opportunity on a number of fronts. And then once we take them, I think we have to embrace them and just go with the risk. It's okay. We can do this.
Thank you.
Hi, Chris Knight, Albany High School and McGregor High School. Clementina, thank you for putting us on the agenda. I appreciate it. And I really appreciate all the board members for coming out. I mean, when you can make it to come to the meetings, it's been great having you guys there. So at the budget committee meetings, to clarify.
We don't have to come here.
Right. So a couple things I want to say. So one is, I know this is a discussion of board policy on interdistrict transfers, but there's an issue that's not a policy issue, it's an implementation issue. So the board approved 30 new students to the high school next year, to bring in 30 new kids to the high school next year. Right now, and freshmen and juniors, right now there are 6 that are waiting to get in. That's data as of today. So that campaign, for what it is, started on March 1st. Teachers have started to just do word of mouth stuff. We're trying to get the word out, but the word's not really getting out that much. And we could use all the support we could to get the word out about the need for more students at Albany High School. Because like I said, 6, the goal was 30. We're looking to get $400,000 either in cuts or in new revenue on top of the $1 million that have already been planned in, as we all know. So that those extra 20 kids, again, students aren't just numbers, but it's a real facilities, and it's a real quality of education issue. So I wanted to say that. And it's separate from policy, it's just implementation. I kind of also want to speak to the elementary issue, but I think you're going to touch on that, right, Jessica? Yeah. Okay, so thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about the waiting list issue?
Sure, and then I just want to give a little piece of information. Please go ahead.
I'm surprised there are only 6 people. Is there a deadline? Are people waiting until the last minute to apply for next year, or what's the? They can apply anytime?
Yeah, they can apply anytime. There's no deadline. I did want to address Chris's question. So I received a list, I think, of 10 schools in the area, non-public, they're private schools. And so I'm working on a very simple flyer, and I will be mailing them out to all of those schools saying, come to Albany. It would be really interesting if, and again, only because I cannot post anything on Nextdoor in Albany. I'm not an Albany resident, and as many times as I've tried, they will not give the school district a Nextdoor account. I'm actually kind of wondering if I can get this information to maybe some key people that live in certain areas of Albany that's on Nextdoor, that this could get out. Because it seems that Nextdoor is a really good venue to get information out. So once I kind of create this flyer, and I'm working on it with Kim, to get that information out, I'm hoping in the next few days that we can get this done.
Can I just want to, so Nextdoor is peculiar that they only allow you to reach out a certain distance from your own house. And so getting it on Albany Nextdoor is not going to get it any further than some neighborhoods in Berkeley and some neighborhoods in El Cerrito. There's a lot of other reasons that the school district needs a Nextdoor account, and anybody here or anybody who's watching us who can help convince Nextdoor to give our school district their own account so that they can post all kinds of news, please help us there. I generated the list. It's actually 16 K through 8 private schools within 10 miles of Albany, and we're going to create this flyer and email it to all of those schools, because those are parents that are searching for where their child is going to go to 9th grade. So this year, when we have 20 of those slots is in the junior class, it's a little bit more iffy, but I think we're going to have to reach out to this to these schools on an annual basis until they get used to the fact that our doors are open again. Then please go ahead, Ms. Cross.
Yeah, hi. I was just to provide a little background, the Budget Committee was interested in this issue of continuity of education and the possibility of relaxing it, not because we didn't understand the importance of commitment to the students, but really because of an appreciation of the size of the fiscal crisis that we're in and how much we're not going to like all the other things that we're going to have to do to students. Also with the hope that we might not have to actually exercise it. It was more a frustration when interdistrict transfer is considered. No, we can't. It's a very conservative approach. Possibly later, maybe, there won't be room. And then that's a reason to make a decision at the kindergarten level because this worry about crowding at the middle school. So that's where our interest came from because frankly, when you have things happen like the current 7th grade class that is missing a class, it's maybe worth knowing that that's about $200,000 a year. That decision, and it's about $140,000 even subtracting from the teacher. So when you decide to have a class that's low, like if there's lower enrollment and you don't put transfers in, it's serious. And if we do that next year, say we don't fill some of the teacher spots for the SERP at the elementary, we will create a bigger and bigger and bigger hole, and we already are pretty deep in, even for 1920. So that's sort of where we were coming from. So that was one of the things I kind of wanted everyone to understand, is that issue that even if you say you don't fill the position and you offer fewer classrooms, you don't save money, you lose money doing that because the kids bring in more than the teacher costs. So that's worth knowing. So the only way to save money that way would be increasing class size. So the other thing is to bring in transfers. And we were interested in having a look at whether we really needed to be as conservative as we've been about elementary transfer. Because even if we get these 30 high school students, if we have the kind of enrollment decline we have had in most recent years besides this one at the elementary level, if that were to happen again, it would more than eat up any money we got from the 30 high school students who aren't even guaranteed. So right now we're talking about a $400,000 hole we have to fill just for 2019-20, and that would just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So I guess we're looking at it as sort of how can we increase elementary transfer. And we were interested in the idea of thinking about it as a school-to-school thing, maybe to get away from the conservatism that restriction leads to at the kindergarten level and the elementary level. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Stewart.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. I'm Stephen Stewart. Yeah, I'm a parent of a child here and also on the Budget Advisory Committee. I feel a little bit like we might be tilting at a windmill here, but I'm gonna keep tilting just for a minute, because I think this is, to the points that have been raised so far by my colleagues here. I mean, it is about that second issue in the agenda, which is the continuity issue, and I guess the way I've been thinking of it is that the idea isn't to get rid of continuity, because I think the points that have been raised so far are incredibly valid ones, and we all value them. Continuity is super important. I think what we're trying to do, and I think that Jessica did a great job with this, is we're trying to counterbalance the fact that there is some genuine concern that we might not get the 30 high school student transfers that I think we're all kind of counting on. And if you think back a few months, there was a decision made here to keep keep projected student enrollment flat, even though we know historically that student enrollment is actually declining. So by relaxing standards around interdistrict transfers, what that would give us the ability to do is really counteract the demographic trend that's happening anyways. I don't the plan here is not at all to get people in at the kindergarten or first grade level, go through fifth grade, and then say, oops, sorry, can't take you into middle school. I don't think that's really the case. What we're looking for is, hey, let's relax the conservatism here so that we can allow people in to reach our maximum contracted level and make sure that we have that at the elementary level and that we pull that through all 12 grades. The idea isn't to exit anybody. The idea here is to make sure that we have as many great students here and we keep them through those 12, that K through 12 as much as possible. And yeah, honestly, I sit on the budget committee. So yes, there's a budget upside to doing that. But yeah, I think your point well taken that if we don't look at this and look to maximize things here where we can, most of the other decisions that we have to make are unpleasant ones. So this is sort of maybe the lesser of multiple evils. Anyways, that's kind of my perspective on this one.
Thank you.
Relinquish the rest of my time.
I had a clarifying question. When I know the number is roughly $10,000 for each student that is admitted, since there's no deadline, if a student or if the family sent in an application the day before school started and wasn't able to start until a few days in, we would receive less money.
Yeah, a little bit less because, well, okay, so there's, if I can explain this really quickly, there's what is called P1 and P2, period 1 and period 2, that we track average daily attendance. Okay, so there's enrollment, there's average daily attendance, and we report to the state what is called our P1, and it's usually in that sort of end of October, and then there's one that's right around beginning of April. Okay, so we look at the average daily attendance. So yes, if a student comes in 3 or 4 days in, it will affect that average daily attendance overall just a little bit. But if a student the day before school started enrolled, and if we had a space for them and we took them in, they could start the very next day if they need to.
Okay, so that's why there's no incentive to create a deadline.
Yeah, I mean, we can have if there's a space, we have interdistrict transfers that sometimes will come in, mid-year if need be.
Okay, thank you.
And sometimes we bring them in on a need basis because there's an issue in another district maybe, and we have reciprocity with the other district.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Do we have additional board comments, or I was gonna try to summarize a bit. Okay.
Wait, before you do that,
Oh,
were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I was, but I'll save it for next. I mean, or is this going to come back as review and action, or do we know what we're doing as far as next steps? Because I did have a question, but I don't need an answer tonight.
let me see.
This is a review and action item.
This is review and action.
Sorry?
Review and discussion.
No, this is review and action.
What it's
Put it
there.
it's up there.
Okay, that means it's in a different place on the agenda, and
It was placed on the agenda under review and action. So,
Oh, it's different than that.
agenda is under review, so there's a.
So it is review and action.
well,
I'll let the audience speak. I did have a question, but I'd like to hear from them first. I thought it was, I was just looking what I saw there.
well, it's interesting because on the agenda, it's under review and action, but the item says review and discussion. I mean, the board does not have to take action tonight. I mean,
We don't have to take action.
But is that what we're leaning? I mean,
But there's also no recommended action here.
there is no recommended action, so it was, right.
I don't
there's no
think we
recommended
can
action.
vote on that.
I thought Clementina recommended.
We may have some action.
It's not on the agenda.
Yeah.
We can't vote on something that's not.
Right, there's no recommendation, right. In this case, it was just review and discuss. So answer to Jacob's question is that we could bring it back as a review and action item at another board meeting.
So that's.
Do we have another community member that wants to speak?
I do have a question, but it doesn't need to be answered.
Okay.
We're
Okay.
going to vote tonight.
Do you want to ask a question?
My name is Olga Miranda. I'm a parent here at Albany Middle School. I want to start out by telling all of our board members and superintendent, we had a commitment from the previous board to have special ed on the agenda at least once a month. And it's not been on the agenda, not in the last meeting or this one, and we had a commitment, and I hope that that is something that the district can continue to honor and this board can continue to have, that there's supposed to be a monthly report about the status of special ed ed. I also want to be able to say that I do support inter-district transfers. Our district gets a significant amount of money for special ed students, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm okay. I'm a big girl. I can admit when my figures are off by a few thousand, but I think we get about 50,000 per student that comes into the district. My concern is that right now, currently, the high school and middle school, there's still a deficit in staff support for the teachers. I don't know if you have recollect when Mr. Usman came and spoke to the board. He has 10 inter-district students with severe needs, but he still has no support. My son is going into the high school next year in the fall, and my biggest concern is going to be the support. In the last month and a half, there's been a lot of tears in the house, a lot of yelling in the house, a lot of trying to meet deadlines in the house over this I-search, and my son was fine. I was the one who was crying most of the time, trying to get it done. But it's one of those growing pains that our children are being put through in order to be able to have that. But at school, when you have these additional needs, you want to make sure that they have the support. But I can't imagine that the district is not going out of its way. If you guys can find a new replacement for Diane Marie, there has to be somebody, I'm sorry, there has to be that same veracity to try and find special ed recruits for the district to be able to have that support. I am really highly concerned over what my son's 9th grade is going to look like next fall. And if you look at page 45 and 46 of this report alone, when I've read it, and I sent it out to other families, there's a trapdoor on there that if the district is welcoming kids that are excellent in academics, but they're going to be quick about showing the back door, what a lovely back door they have out of the district if they don't complete or not meet the standards that the district wants out of this inter-district child. And all of you know that children who have severe needs and all over the spectrum, they're impulsive. They'll hit, they'll push, they'll cry, they'll have emotional breakdowns, and that's not being addressed. And I understand there's a budget crisis that we're facing, but this responsibility can't be ignored about the current students that you have in special ed that have severe needs and that our teachers are not being supported in the classroom. We still continue to have a crisis for paras and the absenteeism that exists. The rates of pay that they're receiving are not enough to be able to survive anymore. And you know, I'll go to my hotel union members and the campaign that they went out on strike for. Just one job isn't enough anymore. And you have paras that are excellent but can't survive just on the wages that are being offered. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Just for the record, I wanted to, we have gotten our special education update sort of pushed back because of the crowded agendas. There was one on January 8th, and we missed February, another on March 12th, and we have missed April, and the next one is scheduled for May 14th.
And there's also one scheduled for June 11th.
So May, June, we'll get back to our once-a-month schedule for our special education
Why can't we
updates.
do it at the end of April?
We can. We're having an agenda meeting this week, and we'll see if we can't make that happen. Yeah. Okay, now to summarize on our current issue, which is this 5117. So what we can do tonight as part of review and discussion is we can recommend changes that we want made to the policy so that when the policy comes back to us at a future meeting, we might feel comfortable taking action on it. It seems like in terms of the questions that were asked, there is a requirement that we do not deny continuity to any student on the basis of overcrowding. So that's off the table. What is on the table is our priority list that Board Member Duran brought up. We could reduce our requirement for working 0.4 FTE at the district. We could reduce the City of Albany 20-hour-a-week requirement. I think that Board Member Duran suggested that we use 10 hours, or 0.2 FTE is our standard there. And then for our business owner operator, that would be priority 4. We could, I think Board Member Duran said, if you've had a business in the city of Albany for 1 month, she would like to change priority 4 that way. So are there any other specific changes that we would like to see before we sort of table this, end our discussion on this item before it comes back?
I'd like to change the current narrative that we currently have, which is you have to do all these different things in order to come to school. You have to fill this out, do this, you have to live. I want to change the narrative a little bit, and I'd like for it to feel more like if you allow us the honor of teaching your student, that we will live up to that for the entirety of their education. So we're putting it back on, because we work for the students. Like that, we work for them. They don't work for us. And a lot of the narrative feels the opposite. And I know that it's not purposeful, and everybody in here cares about students. That's why we're all here, because it's not, for any other reason. But I want to change the narrative. And I think that if we make that change, that the number will go from 6 people wanting to come transfer in to 30. And it'll go to 40 and 50, because parents will feel confident, because they'll say, oh, of course I want to send my kid to school there, because they're going to start their education there and they're going to finish, and I don't have to worry about it. And that Albany is going to commit to my child. And that's what every parent wants. And once we give that confidence, then the numbers will go up. And you can post that on Nextdoor, which I'm happy to do, because contrary to popular belief, I do actually live in Albany.
I would be happy to use that phrase on our flyer that you started with. We'd be honored to have your students.
All right.
Great.
Can you post to like all of Albany on your Nextdoor account, or just like your one neighborhood? Do you know?
It limits it to like your area, but what you can do is
post to other
once you post it, and then like your neighbors start to like comment on it, then it kind of
gets out.
Yeah.
That's a volunteer.
Great. Go ahead.
Sorry, I changed my mind. I'm going to ask my question, but I don't need an answer tonight. But I just want to get it out there. As far as if we bring in students, I understand that we want to keep them all the way through the 12th grade, the continuity, and I support that 100%. I am just kind of wondering, the Assembly Bill, I should have brought my glasses, 2826, it states that once they come in, you cannot say we don't have space anymore. So how does that really work if, for example, we bring in students, and then I've heard that there's construction possibility that we're going to build some apartment buildings down there on Cleveland Avenue in Washington, and let's just say in the future, if we do get more people who come in, you just exceed class sizes, and do you go over? I know the law supersedes.
Yes, actually, I think I can answer half of your question.
The law supersedes ed code, and then it goes down to contractual language and all that stuff. But also, just for a safe and learning environment, not being overcrowded, I'm just kind of wondering, how can they say something like that, there's no cap? I mean...
That's a very good question. If, let's just say that we have building in Albany, and we bring in 1,000 more kids, 500 more kids, and they live in Albany.
Right.
We have an obligation to educate those students. Absolutely. And what happens is, but then what if you don't have the space? So then what you do is you become very creative. One of the options is that we would probably have to load class sizes to their maximums. Anything that is over that, you have to negotiate. Then you start after looking at dropping portables. You look at every available space that's there that you can drop portables, and there are districts that are facing that right now. They're growing districts, and they cannot build schools fast enough to accommodate students. So the answer to your question is we are obligated by law. If you live in Albany, we are obligated to educate your children. Whether we have space or not, we would have to find it.
even if it's not physically I mean, sometimes people write laws that sound good. If you say plop down portables, right? We only have so much space. We had this whole issue with the early bird late bird. You're just going to plop down portables and cover up every single, isn't there laws around how much play space there has to be? I thought.
And that's also another good question, that even though there are the state recommended play space square foot per student, Albany currently does not meet that right now.
Right. All right. Thank you. I mean, I know it's.
So I see Ms. Cross raising her hand, but we do need to end this discussion item. So did you want to make one more short comment?
Very, very short.
Okay, please do.
Several of us were sort of confused about the interpretation of the information about 2826 because it seemed to say you couldn't rescind an approved transfer, but the transfer was approved for grade level and not for the 13 years or the 12 years. So what we were talking about is whether you got a new transfer approval at the new school, and whether you can think of it as school by school, or whether that was actually, the language didn't sound clear, that it actually meant that you can't, if you have crowding at a different school in your district and the person is applying for their new transfer to the different school, if this actually prohibits you from considering space at that point. And it didn't sound clear that it actually forbid that. But anyway, I just want to raise, because it's a little bit different.
That sounds like a question for a lawyer to me, and I will see if we can't consult our attorneys to clarify that before we take action on this. Is the board comfortable with making those suggested changes to this board policy and having it come back to us? Can I get some head shakes here if we're comfortable with that? Okay, then we're ending our, yeah, please
Just say
go
one
ahead.
quick thing.
Sure.
So I feel like we have two issues going on here. One is we're trying to create more, we're trying to open up the restrictions so that more people can get the permits. And yet, we know that we actually don't have enough people applying for the permits. So it's all well and good to make more employees eligible, but at the end of the day, we have more spots than we have applicants at this point. So I think the other piece, which is I think what the budget committee was getting at, is how do we, increase the number of applicants and then figure out, are there other, so we're just talking about high school applicants, but we haven't seen numbers on people who are trying to get in at the elementary or middle school level, and also more part of the pipeline for getting more inter-district transfer students into the high school is to admit them younger, right? It's harder for kids to change districts as they get older. So I think we still haven't had the full discussion about how do we want to, we all agree that we want more people in the high school. We don't need to, I think, discuss that anymore, but I think we're still dancing around this question of elementary and middle school.
So,
none of what we've done tonight is addressing that.
So in elementary, so for example, this year, we did allow in inter-district transfers. I think we allowed some last year as well. We do at elementary, we do try to keep a few spaces open, because if we have people that do move into Albany, I don't want to overload class size. So I just want you to know, I'm very, very mindful at the elementary about class size, because especially at your primary grades, when I've really tried to make it a priority to keep them as low as possible, I have to keep a few spots open. I have a request, because I've heard a lot of discussion, and I'm looking at my two staff who are giving me some somewhat confused looks. Is there a board member who would be willing to send me what the proposed changes are, or give them to Kim to give to me?
It's quite easy. It's priority 1 moves down to 0.2 FTE. Priority 2 moves down to 10 hours a week. Priority 4 moves down to 1 month. That's it. It's very simple.
Is that okay? You guys got it? Oh, all right.
Sorry. Yes. Point 1 would be considered 8 hours. So 0.2 would be considered 0.25. Okay. And then the other thing I just wanted to say about that Ed Code 48204, having to do with the minimum 10-hour requirement, is that applies to any person working in the city of Albany. And so we've identified district employees who work in the city of Albany, City of Albany employees who work in the City of Albany, and then potentially business owners. But then to use your turn of phrase around the universe, right? There are other folks working in the universe of Albany that still are considered in priority 5. So I just wanted to sort of lift that up as you're thinking about how you want to change the language.
I think we could deal with that when it comes back, but yes, priority 2 is specifically City of Albany employees. Yes.
So would you like this to come back on as a review and action item at the next board meeting with these changes?
Can the agenda committee decide on the placement of this?
Absolutely.
item?
I'll put it on the issues.
Okay, because we need to move on. We were on schedule for a short time, and then we moved back off schedule again. Now we are to our item 3, Board of Education Stakeholder Input Report for Superintendent Search. And I see our wonderful consultants here, Bill Hewitt and Nicole Anderson from McPherson and Jacobson, ready to present.
Thank you, President Trutain and members of the board. We're very pleased tonight to to talk to you about the executive summary of the stakeholder input report. Before I do that, I wanted to say that we have closed the applicants now for the job. You have 41 applicants, which is very good, very high. Yeah, and it's, you know, I've done just short of 20 of these, and I think I only had one other district that had more applicants in those. So you're a very attractive school district, and we've briefly just closed last night, so we've just been looking at it today. And while we can't release the names or the specifics because of confidentiality, we can say that at least 25 of those have their doctorate degree. Only 10 are from out of state, so most of those, so you have over 30 in-state persons. And there's a plethora of sitting superintendents that have applied as well. So we'll be, as you know, we'll be coming back in a couple weeks with our recommendations about who you might want to interview, and be working with you in the next 2 weeks to set up those interviews. And then the interviews, I believe, are, I have it on top of my head, the 5th and the 6th?
May 5th
Good
and
memory.
6th.
It's amazing. Okay. All right. We want to talk, though, tonight about the stakeholder input report. On March 19th through the 22nd, Nicole Anderson, my colleague, and myself were here for 3 days conducting interviews, asking our 4 questions. What's good about the community? Tell us some good things about your school district. What are the issues the next superintendent should know about coming to the district? And what are the skills, attributes, and characteristics we're looking for in a superintendent? We talked to 14 different groups of people during that time. We had 5 individual interviews during that time, plus many phone call interviews of folks that we had to get a hold of. Most of those administrators, because we couldn't schedule a time for them together. And we had 2 open forums for the community. During this time, we had 96 individuals in these meetings. In addition to that, we had the survey that asked the same 4 questions, and we had over 80 participants in that. Now, I always, being a math teacher, right, and a science person, I always like to kind of gauge how, you know, what level of participation it is. And whether you think this is high or low, I always have a goal of having at least a ratio of 3% of the number of contacts we make with versus the number of students. Seems like a low bar to me, but that's about what it runs. If I get 3%, I feel like we've done a pretty good job, and yours was over 5%. So you had, for your size school district, you had quite a bit of participation, especially in the survey. Okay, so we're going to give you the executive summary, but I do want to say that you know, one of our themes is transparency. This is published. It's on your website. It's totally available for anybody who wishes to read the entire report. And it's by group of folks that we interviewed. And then also on the survey, it's by whether you were a parent, an administrator, a teacher, a student. I think I probably missed one of the, I think there are 5 groups that they break that down into. So Nicole and I are going to share the duties on this. I'm going to take question 1 and 3, and she's going to take question 2 and 4, and we'd be glad to answer any questions you have. I want to say that we try, as we get this executive survey, to write down the things that we heard most often. We don't pass judgment. We don't make any judgment about whether these are accurate or whether this is the real, really the way things are. It's simply feedback and impressions and the perceptions that your community has about the school district and the community. But we'd be glad to answer any questions that you have as we go through this. Okay, what's good about your community? It's a diverse community. It's diverse in age, ethnicity, and income. This is a small city where people know and support each other. And that came in over and over and over again about, I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I really thought it was fun. Smallby? Is that how you say it?
Smallbany.
Smallbany, that's right, Smallbany. I loved it. I thought that was really clever, but we heard people use that phrase. And everything that a smaller city and community connotes were seen as positives by folks. There's high community engagement and involvement in this community, especially with the schools. We take care of each other, and there was a lot of comments about how we look out for each other's children. I thought that whole theme of it takes a whole village to raise a child seems to be at play here. We care about education, a lot of caring. Students are safe here. They're safe to walk to school. It's a relatively safe community. Right on the wall here, we say an urban village by the bay, and that came up time and time again, whereas it's close to the Bay Area, activities and resources, yet it's still a village. It's still a smaller environment. So that came out as something that was very positive, that you have all the wonderful attributes of the Bay Area and San Francisco, and Berkeley, and all these wonderful urban areas you have, but this is a nice village to live in, and everything is close and easy to get to, but yet you have those wonderful activities and resources that you have in a big city, kind of the best of both worlds. Fundraising efforts, another thing, we all know there are tremendous fundraising efforts for the schools by the community. University Village is a great asset and a nice tie to the university. There were a lot of comments too about the university. I tended to pick up this comment because it came up more often, but it wasn't only University Village, but it also was the connection to the University of California, Berkeley, that is an asset to this community. Low crime rate, safe in comparison with other areas of the Bay. Those were the main things that came up about the community.
All right, before I start, I just want to say good evening, trustees and staff who have supported this process. Thank you. I also want to thank all of the stakeholders who showed up on those evenings in some of those cold spaces, but folks who are very engaged and just really impressed by that, by our stakeholders. So I'm going to cover question number 2. So tell us what was good about the district and the schools. And so there were quite a few comments, and we really tried to gather what was the essence of that. So with our district and our schools, we had strong academic programs at every school. We had caring and hardworking certificated and classified staff. The staff genuinely cares about the students. There's a sense of family at the schools, and everyone is connected to someone. Good relationships with the employee unions. Excellent and plentiful professional development for teachers, and in particular, an example is teacher coaching. Good mental health support. And just to add to that, I believe there was kind of a feeling for students, but there also was kind of a self-care and kind of support for staff that was felt in the room. Overall high academic achievement, notwithstanding the achievement gap. Numerous offerings of programs and extracurricular activities for students. Really supportive administrators. They support teacher needs and training. And lastly, a solid group of principals. And so we'll move to question number 3.
I think the common thing we saw with what's good about the school district and staff were the people. Don't you think? We heard that over and over again about how appreciative people were of the people that work in schools, the staff in schools. It was across the board, classified staff, teachers, a lot of appreciation for very fine teachers here. You don't always hear it kind of the way that we did here. It came out very strongly that the work that the teachers do is much appreciated in this school district. Okay, so now the issues we use to make a good match between who you are going to hire and the set of skills that you need. And so when we look at these issues, I like to say some of these are controversial, some everybody is facing, but we all have issues. And that doesn't mean that we're a deficient or a bad district or something. It's just the present work is how I look at it. So I want to make sure that we're not, we're not saying people are overly critical or anything like that. I thought these issues were, kind of what I usually run and see when I go into a school district. For a district that sometimes maybe doesn't have many issues, you may feel sometimes like you have more issues than you should, but it's the way life is. We all have issues and we all have to address them. And as we look at finding a superintendent, we want to find a good match between the characteristics of a superintendent, their skills and their abilities with what the issues are. So here's what came up most often. We have a vision and action plans, okay, so that's a given. But we'd benefit from looking at plans and progress made in other districts, such as methods to implement social justice practices. You'll see a reoccurring theme on this, is that we do planning, we do have committees, we do get input, we do come up with ideas, but being decisive and then moving forward with them is an issue in this school district. And you'll see that in several of these, because that came up, I think, more than anything, I would say, Nicole, is that that ability to be able to finish the discussion and move forward with the action is an issue. We need professional development to build our capacity to work on racial equity issues. Facilities challenges with construction and student movement. So both of these are big issues, and they're present issues, and we all know about that equity issues that we have in this school district raised their ugly head about a year and a half, 2 years ago. But you'll see in another comment here that it's a present issue. It is still current. Obviously with construction and the student movement, it's tough to rebuild your schools while you're occupying them, and that's an issue. We need a superintendent who knows how to manage the district operations during construction. I think I probably just said that, okay? So we need to have a lot of strategies and good practices for how we still have a fine academic program and housing for kids while we're rebuilding. Equity issues regarding racial and social class status are in the present tense. Sustained discussions are needed. We need how to address this. There is good intention when we have time. So I thought that was a generous statement. But then this is a very present statement that it needs to be moved, though, to the front of the list of issues, or it will fall by the wayside. So we heard constantly that we do some talk, but then we get busy and we put that aside and don't complete and implement changes that need to be given the equity issues that we have. Instagram is a symptom of an undercurrent of what was present. It was brought out in the open during that time. We heard frequently that the rise in drugs in the district, vaping, drug dealing, that's a rising issue, that it's increasing. Divisiveness of staff and community as a result of multiple challenges not being handled adequately and strategically with a consideration of multiple perspectives. So I think that point, be it a full majority view or a minority view, I don't know, but it did come out often that that people have been put in divisive situations because of issues. And primarily, I think the issues were construction and budget, okay? That, that this tended to pit people against each other in some ways, rather than having strategies of solution that would be collaborative, that would bring people together to solve a problem. So whether that's the case, it's at least the perception of many. Budget cuts, deficits, including layoffs of the central office, district administration, site administration, teachers took early retirement to create challenges to fill those positions. So the whole issue, and this is a present issue every school district right now, is that every school district is really contending with budget issues and the results of those, whether it comes through cuts or deficits or negotiations. It seems to be on every list that I read. This one is a bit unique. The math issue has caused parents to spend money for extra tutoring and support outside of the school. Students are starting to express their hatred for math when they used to love math. Now, I don't know that we heard that repeatedly, so I don't know if that's really the cause for everybody, but we did hear that comment. And we heard this math issue, high school, I think. Is that right? High school, middle school? Yeah. Yeah. That's right. It was a transition, I think, from middle to high school, if I'm not mistaken, frequently, so that we thought, okay, we heard that quite a bit. That's an issue. It was the only real specific curricular issue, I think, that we picked up strongly. There's a need for acting on recommendations offered by the district-formed committees. Action plans are formed but never put into action, never given a progress report back to the committee. So this was, again, that consistent thing about we do planning, we do get input, we're pretty good about talking an issue, but bringing it to closure and bringing an action plan and then implementing it and saying, okay, we've heard it, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing to meet it, and then, you know, letting people know, and we're going to assess that, and we can readjust later, but we have to move forward. That whole issue of being able to finish the discussion, put the action plan into place, and test out to see whether it worked right. There's a thing that I know that a lot of districts use called this continuous improvement cycle, and the input phase is one part of it, but the implementation and assessment phase are very important parts of that cycle as well. Okay, so those were the issues, and I think we, we really appreciated, I'll second what Nicole said so eloquently, we really appreciated the input that we got from all your stakeholders. They were very genuine, and they were generous, too, with their time and with what they wanted to say and put forward. And truly the thing that I got is the people that were commenting loved this district and they loved their children in it. So it was, there was not, I didn't feel animosity at all, and sometimes you do. So it was quite lovely to be able to do this. Okay, Nicole, you're going to do the last section.
Yeah, and just to reiterate with the issues, I think Bill said it really well, is that every district has issues, and we were very clear when we front-loaded these questions to make sure stakeholders knew that it is not, an indictment on a district, but literally being very honest and transparent to find the right fit. And someone who will be able to address those issues and be aware of these are the things I'm coming into. And also not just current issues. It's really important to think about historical context from, decades and real historically, what are some undercurrents that people need to be aware of when we talk about systemic change versus just a symptom of something that kind of is usually in the forefront of our minds and we're very reactive to in the moment, but really looking at long-term issues that need to be addressed. So I have the last question, which was, what are the characteristics, attributes, and skills the new superintendent should have to be successful in this position? And so again, thinking of contextually, what's really powerful about this question is that we had a lot of different perspectives. Some people don't necessarily even know what a superintendent is, right? And others are very, very closely related to that position. So it was really interesting to hear the perspectives of what your community felt about the leadership role, and very thoughtful in their answers. So the first is, need someone who will not bring their own agenda and impose it on us, but rather someone who values the work that has been done here, takes time to see the beauty in what we have done, and will bring their experience and talents to build upon and enhance what we have created. And so I think that really speaks to the leadership criteria that you talk about when great leaders come to new spaces, really honoring the history, but also bringing their vision to support that work. Someone who knows and understands this district. A courageous leader who can make tough decisions after listening thoughtfully and thoroughly, will take positions that are in the best interest of students. We need a superintendent with the leadership skills to determine solutions by being able to handle passionate input and opinions, synthesize input, best practice and research, and make decisions that are in the best interest of students and are sustainable, realizing that not everyone will be satisfied. A person who understands and has demonstrated successful experience implementing equity education programs. A strong, transparent communicator, speaking, written, and through technology. An instructional leader, someone who has the knowledge and experience in the classroom and can speak to pedagogical issues with the staff and the public. So again, and that really spoke to the academic what was good about the district is their strong academic focus and high achievement. Good decision-making skills, knows good process. Experience in a district office. So that really speaks of them looking at how they have kind of a broad experience in this particular work. Hands-on leader is needed in this size district. Someone who will attend community events. A resilient leader who will be able to function after budget cuts. And that speaks to a whole lot of districts, by the way. So this is definitely something that's going to be necessary. Have a good knowledge of budget, being able to work with a CBO, a strategic thinker who can put into operation new initiatives, politically astute but also pragmatic. And lastly, staff is new, the board is new, so we need a superintendent who's able to educate and train people in their roles. And so this kind of concludes what, again, the stakeholder input provided for us. But as Bill mentioned, that the details of each of those specific groups are illustrated in the packet. So I think it's really important to really look at the context, because that was an executive summary. But when you look at contextually the different groups, it really gives you an insight of what your stakeholders really are looking for in this new leader. All right.
Okay. Any questions or comments that you might have? That one thing in looking for characteristics, you can see it does align with the issues, I think, and we were pleased to see that people said over and over we need a strong instructional leader, but we need somebody with good decision-making skills, knows good process. I really like that one, if you could scroll back a little bit. Yeah, that one, that third bullet down there, I don't know who gave us that or how we got it, but or whether it was in the survey or in one of our meetings, but I thought that was really astute. I mean, that kind of, for me, said an awful lot right there about what we're looking for in a superintendent. Yeah, so I see a little bit of head nodding.
Yeah.
So again, we appreciate it. We're willing to answer any questions that you have. Certainly, this is not fully inclusive of what people said. There were a lot of other things that people said. These were just the repetitive sort of themes that came out.
Well, thank you very much. I was pleased to help you find the various meeting rooms on those days that you were here. And I'm really proud of our community for having participated so robustly. And I'm impressed by the synthesis here and the wisdom our community has shown in giving us this information. Any
Yeah, I'd just like to second that. I've been very happy with the work that you guys have done, and look forward to finishing it up. Thank you.
I just had a quick question. Were there a lot of community members? I mean, you guys talked about it a little bit, but were there a lot of community members that kind of wanted to see a focus on diversity as far as?
Yes, yeah, and I think both of us should comment on that. There were a lot of community members that were very aware of the continuing work needed for equity and diversity training in the school district. And there's a history perception, too, that the district maybe didn't do everything that it should have in past years, decades. And that some of the reason why there was an incident a couple of years ago was because things hadn't been dealt with. And that means we need to deal with them, and you can't just deal with it and say it's fixed. This is ongoing, continual work in our field of endeavor. So it was a continuing theme of working with equity and diversity in our school district. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll, to answer it more specifically, if I'll refer to page 30 and 31, which may give you a couple of comments that were very specific. And in particular, there were strengths in terms of diversity, in terms of this global diversity. So it wasn't just about ethnicity, it was about language, it was about the different kind of economic status, but also there was a piece about the issues, and the comment was diversity presents challenges. And so when you kind of unpack what that looks like, there's really a lot of profoundness to that statement. On page 31, there were a couple other comments that speak directly to that question. So the lack of focus on equity, differentiating services based on cultural needs, not just ethnicity, but disability, language, gender identity. So the groups are very insightful about what diversity means. And a lot of times I think we get stuck on kind of race and ethnicity, but there were some real insightful things. I will say that the one thing that came up in this was there's two comments around kind of the racial diversity. So there was a comment about Latino and African American students are not performing as model Albany kids. And that's the data, that was coming from data. And so we need to unpack why this data exists and identify solutions. And then historic racism is in the community impacts students of color. So there's a negative narrative about the increasing population of people of color and Asians. Repairing of damage of racial harm is needed. And I think those speak to absolutely, it came up, as Bill said, there were a lot of those discussions, and I really think there's a powerful opportunity to really engage with the community, where I look at it as diversity brings strength, but it also brings challenges. So knowing that and having those discussions is really powerful. So I'm really excited for you with that type of feedback, because I think it speaks to it, and there's definitely the solutions are in the room, the solutions are in the community, so I really look at it as a positive opportunity. So yeah, but there's lots of comments in there.
Great. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you guys again at our special meeting, our special closed session meeting on the 29th. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay, so that moves us to determine stakeholder panel for superintendent finalist interviews. Okay, and Julie and I are going to try to run this ourselves. So the way that the board asked for this to be done at our last meeting, I'm sorry.
I think we needed to take action on the previous item.
We might have them.
To receive the report? Or?
It says review and approve the stakeholder input report.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you. So
Make a motion.
I move that we approve, well, we already reviewed. I move we approve the stakeholder input report.
I second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thanks for catching that. Okay, moving on to determining the stakeholder panel. So the way that the board decided they wanted to do this was to open it up to everyone in the community. And it was advertised in various forums, and then anyone who was interested in being a part of the stakeholder panel could send in a paper letter, or they could send in an email to Julie and put their hat in the ring. We also asked people to list affiliations if they wanted to. No affiliations were necessary. And then I believe we received 20 applications?
Correct.
Yes, okay.
Excuse me.
So as a starting point, then, those went out to the board. Those are confidential, the applications. They contain personal information. And then the board members selected their set of 7, and that's our straw poll. So Julie will give us the results of our straw poll, and then we can proceed then if we want to move ahead with that, or if anybody wants to make changes.
Would you like to see those on the screen?
It's still cool.
Do you want to give us the names and the affiliations that would be covered by the 7 that got the most votes?
I don't have the affiliations listed in the
Okay.
spreadsheet. I just have names and counts.
Right.
Okay.
But some of us know. I mean, if we,
I wrote them down, sort of.
yeah, I have, well, we can try to work it
can do it.
Yeah.
We can do it. Let's see.
Might not, some people had like 5 and 6 things they did, so if you might.
So this spreadsheet shows all of the names of the applicants, and then what I did was tallied. Column I is the total with just board members' votes, and column J is the total including the student board member advisory votes. So you can see
Julie, can I ask you, I'm also getting a lot of glare on the screen. Can we maybe turn the lights down a little bit?
Could you,
All of them but one, maybe.
There we go.
would it be possible to sort this from most to least?
I think you're going to need to, aren't you going to need to highlight the name column as well when you do the sort? Okay.
I don't have those skills.
I'm sorry, I'm so not used to Microsoft Excel anymore, so give me a minute.
Please take your time. I appreciate it.
It's really close.
Yeah, it's close.
I thought there'd be like 5. It kind of just
Yeah.
stood out, you know.
There's a lot with 2.
Whoa, wait, what happened? Did the numbers change yet?
No.
No.
Oh, they're in order.
Is that big enough?
In order of who got the mo,
And we picked 7?
Yeah.
These are all.
Those are all 2s, yeah, okay.
Okay, so there's a whole set of folks that have gotten 2 votes that the board might want to discuss that. And the third column would be the totals, including our votes from our student board members, those advisory votes that they give. And if we were, I think we might have, if the board is interested in using that third column, we might avoid the problem of the 2s. Let me see. Can you highlight the top 7 on that?
Actually, it looks like.
Okay. I was just very impressed that we got 20 applications from our community when we asked them to take an entire Sunday and an entire Monday because we were unable to give them a shorter time period, and they were willing to commit to that. So I'm very pleased personally with almost any set of these names. I'd like to hear from the board about how you would like to proceed. Yes, Board Member Hinckley.
I just have one comment, which is Looking at this quickly, I think we have representation from all of the groups we asked for, with the exception of a couple of the applicants identified as Asian or Chinese and as English language parents. And I don't think in that top list that we have anyone from the Asian community or English language learners. And I would like to see that representation in the group.
I believe that,
And I'm speaking for how people identified themselves in their applications.
yeah, I think that we should check on candidate 9 and candidate 10, Doris Mitchell and Lucy Wu.
Yeah.
And if someone wants to check those.
Lucy
affiliations.
identified as Chinese and English language committee. Help me with the name of the committee, the DLAC parent group.
She was one of the ones I picked too, and I agree with what Sarah's saying.
Okay. If we are choosing them as our two, then would we have Yael, Jenny, Colette, Neri,
Which two are you referring to?
Doris, and Lucy?
I think we were referring to just Lucy.
To Lucy. Oh, okay, sorry. I think that Doris also might have English language learner.
She didn't mention it.
She didn't mention that. Do we have our Familia Latinas? Because I believe Doris is a member of that.
Yes, and I think
Jenny Jones.
We have two, and Mr.
Okay.
We have two already in the top.
Oh, right. Mr. McIntyre and Jenny Jones.
Yeah.
And Jenny James. Okay. So then if we were to take all of it to Neri and then add Lucy, that would still give us more options. Would anyone like to put forward specific names among the rest?
Well, what are you saying? To swap out?
Would have to, if we were going that way. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, all of the ones that have 2 votes are really in the equivalent position. So it would be the board's responsibility to sort through all of those 2s. There's no difference between, in terms of votes, between any of the ones that have 2 votes from the board members.
So then, like, for example, well, I mean, the top,
We're taking the top 4, period.
taking the top 4 no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we need to pick the next 3.
So if we picked Lucy, then we have 2 more spots.
Correct. And it'd be coming all the way down to number 11, which would be Rachel Sarah, somewhere in that, from line 6 to line 11, we'd be looking for 2 folks. That's my understanding.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
So, yeah, I mean, and I think that Dorothy Peloso has done an incredible amount of work for this school district and for this community with her long-term leadership at Cornell at the PTA there and her current leadership at the middle school. And she has a depth of experience also because she has 2 older kids that went through the district and are out of college. So I would feel very comfortable putting Dorothy Peloso's name forward for one of those spots.
I would feel, personally, I feel comfortable moving Doris Mitchell up to one of those spots. She currently has students who would be directly affected by this decision for a long period of time because she has younger students in the district. Also, when she filled out the information packet, she really took a lot of time and like attached a separate form explaining why she would be a good fit. And I always think that you have to appreciate people that take, the additional steps and when they're, applying for something. But then again, directly affected by the decision that'll be made for a long period of time because she has younger students in the district as well.
I'm going to throw out another couple names. Bonnie Wolf, she is the one of the coordinators or the heads of the ACA, and so she has a lot of knowledge and experience around diversity and inclusion, 100 different things that, you know, that I think the search team spoke to tonight, and she really has a deep understanding of a lot of different issues that we have in the district. So she's another one who at this point I think has 3, or she had 2, and then one of the students had recommended her as well. And the other is John Destin, who is a single dad, who we don't have, and how many, well, we have just one other male already on, so adding another male, yes and no, right? But yes, yes, and as a single dad, I think that's an additional perspective that we don't have offered here.
Yeah, I thinking about that actually. I think John adds another unique perspective as well, so definitely.
You know, one way that we could do this and get through this item, because we still have staff reports to do, I think we're going to have to table something down on the list, is if we take the 5 that are in red right now, we need 2 more. So if we...
There's only 4 in red.
No, Lucy Wu is in red also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. Then, okay, wait, let me finish it out. Yeah, what is it? Then we need 2 more spots. And then we could we could go through the names, and we could each get 2 votes, so we can each vote for 2 more people, and then we could sort out those folks. Okay, now, Mr. McIntyre, you want to, oh, I'm sorry, I missed Board Member Clark.
As long as I can go after.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
May I suggest that perhaps you could give weight for the spots that you're trying to fill to the student board members' votes, and you could do it that way. It would be pretty straightforward based on the spreadsheet.
Yeah, that puts us in the position of
Well, they're not here, so we would have to table it. So I don't want to do that.
They're waiting outside because we also have to decide on them about, because they both want to be on the input panel.
Oh, they're gone. They're gone.
They're gone.
Okay, but they didn't want to be here for this discussion because we're going to have to vote on which one of them we're going to allow to be on the stakeholder panel. Go ahead, Board Member Clark.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a plug for the last 2 that we're deciding. Dorothy Peluso has done an awful lot in the community. I just wanted to go over her thing real quick, but current parent at AUSD, affiliations, Cornell and AMS PTA president, current AMS PTA president, Albany High School PTSA, so she's done an awful lot. And I'd also like to second Clementina as far as John Destin. He's an AMS parent, PTA as well, Jewish Parent Engagement Group, Albany Education Foundation, Albany Community Foundation, and a member of the Budget Advisory Committee. So of those last 2, I'm going for Dorothy and John.
Okay. Okay. So everybody probably knows what we're doing. So we're just going to go through the list now. Julie, can you help me count the votes here? Okay.
Who are we choosing?
We're choosing among the 2s, and that would include Rachel Sarah below Lucy Wu.
Correct.
Okay. And as we call out their names, if you've got 2 votes, you can vote for 2 different ones. Okay.
Right.
So Bonnie Wolf, raise your hand if you want to bring her onto the panel with one of your votes. Okay. Dorothy Peloso, that's 3. Okay. John Destin, 3.
We put 2. 3, right? Was your hand up?
3. There's
Sorry.
Doris Mitchell.
Oh, hold on, give her 1 sec.
Okay. Doris Mitchell, that's 2. And Rachel Sarah.
Sorry.
Did we miss?
We all get 2 votes, right?
We
Right.
get 2 votes.
Okay.
What happened to Bonnie Wolf?
Shoot, that was first.
Well, yeah, I called her out, but you didn't raise your hand.
Sorry.
Okay.
That's your second vote.
One.
That's 1.
So Clement, so I saw my 2 votes counted.
We have 10 votes when we add it up, so yeah, I have my 2.
You have your 2? Okay, so
Wait, can I use my 2 votes for one person?
no. No. Okay, so then that means that Dorothy and John.
Okay.
No, there's still 1 vote.
What?
Oh,
I didn't vote
Rachel
just for
Sarah?
my second. No, for Doris.
Again, on Dorothy, I saw 4 votes, not 3.
Okay, so
Over.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to do it. Okay. Dorothy, Bonnie Wolf, 1. Okay. Dorothy Peloso, 3. John Destin, 2. Doris Mitchell, 3. Rachel Sarah, 1. Okay, so that means that our community members will be Yal Bloom, Jenny Jones, Colette West, Neri Castillo McIntyre, Dorothy Peloso, Doris Mitchell, and Lucy Wu. Okay, board, can we affirm that vote
Yes.
for our community members?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much. Julie, please help me out here. I believe that the ATA has suggested the 3 members of the panel that they get. And we're working with SEIU. CSEA has recommended their members. Can you let us know the site administrator and the district office administrator that had been recommended by those groups?
Yes, Human Resources Director Cheryl Cotton was selected to represent the district office, and Albany Middle School Vice Principal David Hoppert for the school sites.
Great, and that leaves us with the only unchosen is our student representative, correct?
Actually, the SEIU representatives are still unknown. The board would need to decide on that because they have 2 nominees, both of whom cannot serve on both days. So they wanted to volunteer one for one day and one for another day. And they're listed here.
I know that our consultants have been against that from the beginning, but on the other hand, I do think that it's a lot to ask for our service employees union to give up 2 days, and if they can only, if they can only be on the panel by this arrangement, my inclination would be to accept that.
I second that.
Second that?
Well, I don't know. If it,
Okay. Okay, Bill and Nicole, I think we're just going to need to do that.
We understand.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
you know, just the only reason we're against it is for liability, but we don't think the liability is terribly high in this case. So.
okay, thank you. And they will both sign those confidentiality agreements that are needed. Okay, that brings us to our student board member. Both of our student board members, Michaela Weinstein and Audrey Malott, have applied. In addition, another Albany High student sent in an application. So they all 3 say that they're available on both days. This is not a situation where we need to share. This is a situation where we need to make a choice. I feel very uncomfortable about this, having to do this in an open session. But there it is. So, any comment from the board?
We don't have their applications or anything, do we?
What happened to Ms. Smithy's application?
I do have Ms. Smithy's application, but when
I know
there was
what
some
happened.
miscommunication when the student board members expressed their interest, I think we were under the impression that student board members would get preference, so I didn't forward that application from Ms. Smithies to you.
And I think that Julie got that impression from me. I felt that with all the student board members due to participate in this process, and since they, understand the way the school district works probably better than most people in the district, that we should give them preference if they were able to do it. AP testing is going on that week of the interviews, but they both ended up figuring out that they would still be able to make the interviews. So, my personal inclination would be to allow Audrey a spot on the committee, because and this is just me, all of us get to decide, but Michaela has been able to participate in a lot of extra ways in our process, and Audrey hasn't always been able to do that. So I feel like it would be nice to give Audrey a spot at the table. The only way to do this is going to be to vote. So if you would like student board member Audrey Millah, please raise your hand. 3. If you favor Michaela Weinstein, please raise your hand. 1. And is there an abstention?
I am abstaining from this vote.
Okay, there we go. So Audrey Millah has become part of the stakeholder input committee. Stakeholder panel for superintendent interviews. There we go.
So if I may, column C is now the selected complete column or complete panel that the board needs to vote on.
Thank you. Can I have a vote on the stakeholder panel?
Can you scroll it up all the way before we vote so we can see it all? Yep. If possible. So 1, 2. If you can go up just for the last 7 in the red, please. Thank you. I make a motion that we approve these 15 individuals to be on the committee or interview committee, or?
Thank you.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Okay. And board, we need some help here because we are over time now, and I'm going to need to ask for an extension. And also, I think we should consider moving our the equity goals and measures survey sheet to a future meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay. Then that gives us, then we'll have 20 minutes left for our food services program report. So we would need to have an extension, I would say, to 10:15.
Move that we extend the meeting to 10:15.
Second.
Thank you. Let's move forward. Business services.
Thank you, President Trutane, members of the board. The purpose of this item is for the board to review and discuss the food service program overview and elementary breakfast program. This was requested by a board member to bring this as a review and discussion item. There are several questions that were asked, but I do have Sabina Feinberg, who is our executive chef for Albany Unified School District here. And welcome back, we have Clell Hoffman, who's also in the audience, just in case there's some history you might need. So this really was, I believe it was board member or Vice President Doss, did you want this item on the breakfast program brought up? So I open it to the board for discussion.
Is our executive chef going to give a presentation?
She just, you don't have a no, she doesn't have a canned presentation because I was told that the board wanted the majority of the time to have the discussion, so there's no formal presentation, just the information in the backup.
Go ahead.
Yeah, without going in depth, I just want to say I really support this. Thank you for bringing it up, Brian. Where I teach in San Leandro, the students have breakfast at all of our schools, and a lot of the kids are there in the morning. And we received a lot of emails this afternoon. Just a good way to start the day, you know, for the kids who actually can come to spend a little bit of time chit-chatting with their friends and get their stomach nice and full. So I support it 100%.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I guess I'm a little, I just like some clarity on what we're discussing or supporting. So there were a few things that were surprising to me here. One was that there were only 15 kids at Ocean View actually using the breakfast program. So I guess the pieces that we wanted to talk about, I'm guessing, are what happens to those 15 kids when they move to the other schools, and then do we offer, if we offer them that program at Marin and Cornell, what does that look like cost-wise? Do we, if presumably there's a high fixed cost, so if we offer it, all of the children who are already at Marin and Cornell could also take advantage of it. So I guess part of my question is, what exactly are we, what is the guidance that you're looking for, or that we're supposed to be making a decision about?
This is just review and discussion. Yeah.
So I can kind of give some background to kind of my thoughts behind it. In order to feed students the knowledge that they're coming to school to gain, we have to feed their stomachs. They have to, it's just something that students just shouldn't have to worry about. It's something that kids should just have. It's more important than a lot of things that we've discussed, and it's really simple. If a kid is sitting in class hungry, he or she is not paying attention to what the teacher is saying. So no matter how great that teacher is, that student's not listening if they're hungry. I truly feel that as a district, we have a responsibility to make sure that no student feels like that, regardless of their situation. Maybe their parents are making a ridiculous amount of money, but they just don't have time to make breakfast because their jobs require them to sometimes leave at 4 in the morning, and then they have to have somebody else drop their kid off, and that person doesn't know where anything is in the kitchen, so the kid just gets to school at, they get there like a little early, but, they didn't have time to get everything together. Like, it's just, there's a lot of things that kind of come into it. So I wanted to address this to make sure that we put something in place to where, every student has the opportunity to have something to eat before they start their day so that they start their day off right. It's just something that we can implement to make sure that we just don't have those issues. I can give an example. I could use my 2 kids as I'll use a personal example. My daughter Allison goes to Albany Children's Center. I wake her up in the morning, I get her dressed. She is like, kind of running around, kind of giving me a hard time. But once I get her dressed and brush her teeth and do those things, we can just head to school because I know that when she gets there, there's breakfast. So I don't have to worry about that part, because it's already provided at the school, and I know that she's going to get that meal. She can enjoy it with her friends. She's building those skills that kids need to build. And I know that she's going to start the day off right, and that the one thing she's not going to worry about is being hungry. My older daughter, as a 4th grader, Marin does not provide breakfast. So either she has to wake up earlier so that she has time to, so I have time to make it and then have time to get her ready and then get her to school, which, everybody's situation is different. However, you can eliminate a lot of those issues by just providing the food for the students when they arrive. I also volunteer on Mondays for the math stations, and you can see in the class, you can see the students that are hungry versus the students that aren't. And the students that are hungry, they're just not paying attention and they're not focused. And kids are young, so they might not even recognize that that's the reason why they're not able to focus in the class and really retain the information. But again, we can just eliminate that by just providing it for everybody.
Yeah, I guess I totally understand the value of feeding the kids and giving the opportunity. I guess one thing that surprises me is that we've given 500 kids that opportunity at Ocean View and only 15 of them are using it. So if we were to create that opportunity at Marin and we had 2 kids using it, is that, so I guess I have a couple of questions for staff. One is, what is going to happen? So those 15 kids getting breakfast at Ocean View now could potentially be in 4 different places. So we could be dealing with a situation where we're creating a breakfast program for 3 kids at 4 across those sites. Is that, what's the cost of serving those? What's the feasibility of doing that, I guess, is one question. The other question I have is that in the report, it says it was determined that there has not previously been, nor is there currently, a demand for breakfast at Marin and Cornell. So I would like more information on, sounds like Brian would use it. So what was the process by which you decided there wasn't demand at Marin and Cornell?
I'm going to have our
one more
to come up. Yeah.
One more question, which is that we have a lot more students getting breakfast at high school. So is that because, why is that? Because that's a much higher percentage of kids than are taking advantage of it at the elementary level. Yeah, because I understand it's great to feed kids breakfast, but creating a program where we're have entire staff spending hours preparing meals for 2 children, I think is a challenging prospect.
So the first question? That was
The first question was, what's going to happen to those? What's the plan for accommodating the 15 students that we know would like breakfast at the elementary level if they're spread across 4 sites?
Right. As of now, there is not a plan to serve breakfast at the AMS annex or the high school building.
And does that affect any of the kids who are currently using the breakfast?
It could.
It could.
Because we currently don't have the breakfast program at any of the existing elementary schools, and so unless we create a program at all of our sites, depending where the 15 students, if they're not incoming kinders, right, they're the grades 1 up, they'll either be at the annex or they'll be at the high school. So the good news of that is we're still in the planning phases of the transition, so we could work that through. But that's 15 kids, and they could, depending what grade they're in, they could be at one site or the other.
Superintendent,
And what about Marin or Cornell? You said we wouldn't be doing it at the annex or the addition, but what about Marin and Cornell?
We're still talking about that. There's, because.
So according to the numbers that we got, so currently at Ocean View, the K and the first graders would be next year's first and second graders that would be at the annex. And so there would be 3.5 breakfast is demanded at the annex. And so 3.55 would be the level of demand at the annex. And then at I don't know if breakfast would still continue to be served at Ocean View in the fall before the students were moved to the high school. Do you have an idea about that?
At this point, I would continue to serve the remaining students.
So that would be the second, third, and fifth in this list, which would be 6, basically roughly 7 breakfasts.
And it could
7 breakfasts at OV until they're moved over to the high school. Go ahead.
Question, I'm sorry, did I cut in front of the Superintendent? Go ahead.
Okay, a couple of things. The Superintendent, you had the exact figures because I asked that question. That was one of the questions raised, which was how many kids for next year then are we seeing at the annex and at the high school? So you definitely have the those numbers, which I think Kim just asked. And then there was a question about how much money are we looking at in terms of what that would cost us potentially with extra employees, et cetera. And you were able to cost that out as well.
Right, so we have 2 people at 4 hours a day at $20 per hour, be $28,000 per year minimum.
And that was for the total of how many students, Kim, did you say? It was 3 and 7, so it was 10?
It was 3.55, and, well, yeah, so it's basically the 15
Minus
that were
the-
listed minus the 3
So
fifth
12.
graders.
So we're looking at
it's
12 kids.
So $28,000 for 12 breakfasts a day.
And then, is it possible that, I also was wondering about the Marin and Cornell saying that the program wasn't necessary. And I'm wondering if at this time, if we could do a survey with the schools again and with the parents specifically and see if breakfast was offered just across the board, is there more interest? Would parents be more interested in having a breakfast program where they take their kids to?
I mean, I think any survey can be done with parents, and I'm assuming you're meaning elementary, middle, and high, all sites, correct?
Well, I wasn't thinking of the middle and the high because there are numbers. At the middle school, it's 50, and at the high school, it's 215 or something like that. So there's high enough numbers.
Just serving the
already.
elementary students?
Yeah, to see the interest.
Well, I guess that was my second question, was what was the determination that there was no interest at Marin and Cornell? How was that arrived at?
Well, this was, maybe Claude could speak to this, because over the past several years, it's been brought up to the administrators there, and not that I think you said that it wasn't necessary. It's not that it's not necessary, but that there wasn't a demand.
Mm-hmm.
Parents hadn't reached out asking for the breakfast program at those schools, and also there's space issues and space and labor and other concerns are factors.
So the NPR is being used for before care at these sites. Is that?
Well, that's what we're talking, when we're looking at continuing this. I mean, when we're looking at providing breakfast for next year.
I would very much love to hear from Mr. Hoffman about, because he's the one who got the breakfast program started at Ocean View, I believe. And maybe he can give us some perspective about the whole program.
See you guys.
Hey, welcome back.
So, in January of 2015, Principal Georgeson came to me and wanted to know if we could provide breakfast at Ocean View, because she said there was some demand for that. So we created that program at that time. And then over the last 4 years, I've touched base with the different site administrators at Marin and Cornell just to check in with them, always thinking about equity issue. And they just told me that they didn't feel like there was a demand for it. There is a cost. It costs about $66,000 with food and labor a year.
$6,600.
Or $6,600, I'm sorry. $6,600 a year with food and labor for Ocean View. And so it costs a little bit of money to do that program, and with the current issues with PERS and increase in benefits and whatnot over the past years, I was just trying to be prudent with what programs we were going to provide. So, again, I always reached out to the site staff, and they just didn't feel like there was demand for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question for I guess it would be you, but it was around the amount, and sometimes I maybe not understanding the numbers properly, but here it said it cost $6,600 to run the program, but then just earlier it said something about $28,000. So if it's $6,600 to run the program at Ocean View, and then we had that number, this was in the responses, you know, when people sent the questions and responses came back. Then it started talking about 2 people at 4 hours a day is $20 per hour, so it came out to $28,000. Where do you get the 4 hours if we're just serving breakfast? I mean, is that?
If we did it at all of the sites, I think.
Come up to the mic.
Sorry to, thank you for coming back, Claire.
So overall, it's not just the 2 people at the sites that you have to take into consideration. There's a manager at the central kitchen. There's a driver who takes time to provide that food, and that's all sites. That's not just the one site. So those are the total costs, and that also factors in benefits as well.
So the 6,600 wasn't adding all that stuff in?
The 6,600 is what it costs now just for Ocean View. The 28,000 is if we did all, and that includes food. The 28,000 is if we did it for the kids in all of these sites.
So we're taking that 6,600 and somehow timesing it, and it's coming out to roughly 28,000.
It's like 26,000.
Now Marin, Annex, and Addition.
Okay.
Yeah, because you would have 4 sites then you'd be serving at? Because Cornell.
I got you. So the 6,600 times. Sorry, cool.
So I'd like to make a recommendation if I can. Unless you have another question?
Yeah, just the last one. Nope. I know the numbers are accurate. I'm just shocked that 15 people or students are taking advantage of this. And it had been talked a little bit earlier, but how well is it being advertised? I mean, it just seems like such a low number, you know.
I can't answer the advertisement question. I mean, maybe Sabine can ask that. But in terms of, and thank you, because it kind of leads into what the suggestion I was going to make. The original survey, I think, was done back in 2015. It was like the first year that I came. So I think it's appropriate now, it's 5 years later, that to have another survey that's done to see what the interest is. And given the fact that circumstances may have changed over the last 5 years, there may be more of an interest. What then we're going to need to do is work with Sabina on sort of a cost-benefit analysis on if we had more people that wanted it, how much staff would you actually need? What would be required? Then we'd have to talk about the spacing issues and is it feasible? I think until we have much more solid information, first on what is the interest? Because yes, we have 15 now, but if we do a survey and we find out there's 115 that have interest, that's a whole different conversation, right? This shifts the conversation to, can we then make it happen, right?
So,
unless we have that information, I'm afraid then the board will be talking about it, but not having any kind of interest from, or any kind of data, even if it's anecdotal data, about what the interest is in the community to have this at the elementary sites.
So, okay, let me make sure try to make sure I gather my thoughts correctly. First of all, thank you for staying so late, both of you guys. And both my girls enjoy the food, and my older daughter enjoyed it when you were here. Also came to the presentations that you did for the PTA, and they were always really good. So I wanted to make a couple of points. The students at Ocean View that receive breakfast, if it's 1, if it's 15, if it's 3, regardless, they should still be able to have the breakfast. Also, the students have been receiving it at Ocean View consistently. We have decided that we want to build these schools, and everybody's really excited about them, and this boardroom has been full of people who want to build these schools. And so there's been so many sacrifices that the students have to make in order to build these schools. Now we're moving these students to a different location, and we're going to tell them that we're no longer going to provide you breakfast. That doesn't make any sense to me. On top of that, if you attend the before school program at Cornell or Marin, they provide you with breakfast. So the food is already being delivered to these schools for the students that participate in that program. If we vote to provide breakfast for all students, then, I mean, that would be increased, but the food's already going to these schools. There's already students that are eating the breakfast because they attend the before school program. And then for the survey, I mean, I think it's great to send out a survey, but at the same time, some people fill out those surveys, some people just delete them, some people don't check the emails. That doesn't mean there's not students at these schools that are hungry. I'm at the school every day, I see it. And not just Marin, I go to Cornell and all the other campuses, and I just see it. I don't need to fill out a survey to tell you that the kids, they need food. Also, I have 15 emails from parents that are interested. And then on top of that, because we are telling the kindergarten parents that they have to pay more money, telling them that they have to drop off our youngest learners earlier at school to accommodate for our new schools that we're building. Also being able to tell them, hey, I know we're doing all that, but you can just drop your kid off because we're going to feed them before they start school, I think would be a move in the right direction. One of the comments that they made, I'm just trying to get it all out here. One of the comments that they made was that we throw a lot of things out there, but we don't actually move forward and get the things done. And I feel like I'm hearing right now, let's do this, and let's do this, and let's do this, and let's do this, instead of we have the food, we have the means to provide it, there are students that need to eat, let's figure out how to get it done. So we don't have to keep putting barriers in our way, because when there's other things, we don't put barriers in our way. We just vote on it, and we just pay for it, no matter how much it costs. If it needs to come from the bond or not come from the bond, we just vote on it, and we just pay for it. And it's large amounts of money. But if it's something that is popular or cool, we just go for it. It's tricky when you're voting. It's tricky when you're voting on things, especially when you're voting on things in a district that is predominantly one way other than the other. I mean, so it's tricky when you have like the voting. Sometimes you just have to do something because it's the right thing to do, regardless of the cost. And I'm looking at the cost, and it doesn't really seem that expensive. In the grand scheme of things, we spend a lot more money on other stuff that we could probably spend less on. So, oh, there was one more thing that I was gonna say. If we provide it at a larger scale, then it doesn't single out those few students that have the need. If we provide it on a larger scale, if we do just try and single out those few students that we currently know need it, it really does single out those students, and we wouldn't want to do that. So.
Executive Chef, can you clarify how the Before program is providing food? Is that through the central kitchen, or is that a separate system?
That's a separate system. It's a different breakfast than what Ocean View has. I think it's mostly like cold cereal and milk and muffins, a very light breakfast, fruit and milk.
Okay, so
whereas at Ocean View, there's a hot item also.
Okay, so it's not through the central kitchen. It's
not
they do it themselves.
Right, it's not delivered every day as as like the Ocean View.
But do they order through you? So do you provide like the box cereal? Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, back to the original one when I was talking about the 28,000, then it was 6,600 to run it at Ocean View, but then it said, even though it was 6,600 to run it, even though there was only 15 students, it was only a $2,700 loss. So if we were just to take that number, 2,700, and times it by 4, we're talking like a little under $11,000. And with all the money that we spend on other things, and no one wants to run any program that's not making money, but if we have to take a $10,000 hit, with the numbers being as low as they are right now, to make sure that these kids have an option to eat, I agree with Brian. I mean, I've been up here long enough. We pass stuff for $50,000, $100,000, all this other stuff without a thought. And here we're talking about, if my numbers are right, $11,000 if the numbers stay as low as they are now. So I definitely propose we have this discussion again at another time when we can get some more information on how feasible it is to make it work. But of all the things we do that we don't make money and we actually go in the hole on, this one, if we don't make money, I'm okay with it.
No disrespect to either of you, but maybe we could come up with a more creative solution where we're not talking about benefit costs and things like that. Let's just select 5 popular breakfast places and figure out how we could bring that food. Burrito one morning, I'm sure kids would like that, and other things. And I'm sort of being facetious, because I know legally that's not possible. It's not gonna work. But I'm really trying to think of, if a mom would open her home for one morning, you'd have lots of kids there, and they'd be eating good, those 16 kids anyway. If we're gonna open it up to all the families, well, that's a whole other thing, because then there may be, I mean, if we do a survey and find out there's more parents, then I think the possibilities are more realistic of having a program and having the monies that go with that would help us. Because on one hand, on a philosophical level, I agree. I mean, we should have provide breakfast for all the kids in the district. I know middle school kids are hungry all day long, so, food is always a good thing. But on the other hand, I just think that we do have to be realistic, especially given our finances, and also because of the age that I am, I remember when there was no food in the schools and we had to muster up, and that's when I remember the burrito that I would take to school. And I just think that more and more and more the schools are being asked to take on just about everything under the sun. And because I'm that old, I have the issue about Big Brother and having the institutions define everything for us, and families no longer have to take those responsibilities because the schools are going to do it, the government's going to do it, somebody else is going to do it, and so, but that's my philosophical spiel. But in terms of what we realistically can do, I think it's important that we do a survey and we do find out what the interests of the community are and if they would in fact participate in a program.
You might not know the answer, and I'm not expecting you to, and I know they kind of put you on the spot. So again, thank you for coming, and there's no pressure. Do you know of any other school districts that don't provide breakfast at every level? Because my mom has been a teacher for 30 years. The board member to my left works in a different district. I have lots of friends from here all the way to San Jose, and they have kids in each district. And this is the only district that doesn't just provide breakfast to the students that I can think of. Now, I could be wrong, but I hear what Clementina is saying, and I respect her opinion. And I think that in a lot of ways she's right. However, it is our task as a chef, as board members, as students, and as parents to educate our students at the highest level. In order for them to perform effectively, they have to have food. It's essential. And I don't think that it goes to the parents are being asked to take on a lot, especially those kindergarten parents. They're being asked to take on a lot. They're being asked to make a lot of changes. The Ocean View parents are being asked to take on a lot. We're asking them to take on so much. And when these new schools are built, they're going to be amazing. And I can't wait to see them. I know that sounds, I'm not being sarcastic. I'm excited to see them. But we got to take care of the kids that we have right now. I'm going to care about those kids that are coming later too, and I am excited to watch them walk into their new school. But we have students right now, and we just have to take care of the students right now, and we just have to get the program implemented. Again, it's not a large amount of money, and I don't want to keep you guys here all night. I mean, I have a field trip to go to at 7:40 in the morning, so I would like to go home too, but at the same time, I have to stay here and I have to advocate for the students that their parent might not have time to fill out the survey because they work all day in the morning and then they work a night job so that they could live in Albany. And they might not have time to fill out the survey, but they definitely will be dropping their kid off to make sure that they eat. And so, like I said, again, I appreciate your hard work, and I know that it won't be an easy task to implement this for every student. But one morning, you'll walk into one of the programs and you'll see those kids eating that food, and it'll all be worth it. And for me, I've seen it I've been to Ocean View and I've seen it there. I've been to Oakland and seen how it worked there because I wanted to get all the information. And it is a wonderful sight to see. And even on a smaller scale, seeing it at ACC, and I know that it's a different type of food, but sometimes we have to we have to put the kids first. And I know that, old school, and I appreciate that, but that's not how it is now. Like, back in the day, if you got picked on, it was like you came in the house, you told your parents you got picked on, and they sent you back out to fight the person. But now, that's not how it works, because things are changing. And so since it is changing and we are kind of coming into an age where the school district does take on more to educate the students, this is something that we need to just take on. And I don't feel comfortable wasting time sending out a survey. We got to just get this done, get these students what they need, put the students first, not always talking about cost. Put the students first, because everything comes down to cost. And I'm saying we have to change that narrative. That's why I ran for the school board, because I want to change the narrative. It's not about let's get a whole bunch of interdistrict transfers because we need money. It's about let's open up the doors because we're providing this amazing education and we want to give it to everybody that we can. That should be the motivation. And I'm telling you, if we change the narrative and we're telling people, hey, send your students here, because when they get to school first thing in the morning, we're going to provide them breakfast, they're going to go to class, and we're going to provide them an excellent education, and they can stay here and continue their education from the day that you drop them off to the day that they graduate from Albany High. And I promise you, if we change that narrative and we change the thinking into going back to catering to the students and not catering to everything else, people will receive that, and the numbers will go back up.
Okay, but sorry, we're 10 minutes past our extension, so we need to have another extension of, I'd say, at least 10 minutes so that we can finish up this discussion, probably 15 minutes, and go through agenda items. Can I get a motion to extend?
Yeah, I make a motion to extend the meeting for 15 minutes.
I second.
All in favor? Oh, it's okay, sorry. Okay, I just wanted to make a couple of quick comments. One thing, in the agenda packet, the very nice backgrounder that was provided talks about the 215 students at the high school that have breakfast during morning break. I just wanted to clarify that a little bit. The break at the high school varies on different days, but it usually it runs anywhere from 10:30 to like 11:30. So it's a mid-morning thing. So certainly my my guy is ready to eat again by 10:30. It's not that he doesn't get a breakfast. It's, and then at lunchtime he's going to eat again, and immediately after school. So I think that's a little bit of a different situation that we should highlight. And another thing I would just say about my family is that I had a kid with food intolerances that needed to eat at home. And just as part of our family culture, we eat together. And there's many different cultures in our diverse community. And I wouldn't give my kid what I've seen in terms of the packaged products that are used for breakfast. So I agree that kids are hungry and need to eat, and I'm gonna feed every one of them that comes within my range. But I think that there's a lot of underlying assumptions here about what different parents are going to want. And I think we can't extrapolate our personal situation to everybody else. I think that we have to at least go as far as, if we send out a survey and people say, no, I'm not interested in buying breakfast for my kid, I think we have to trust that they're at least answering honestly. Of course, there's not going to be 100% respondents. There never is. But if we're going to check into this, I think we have to be open to the idea that there's a lot of different cultures, there's a lot of different family habits here, and of course we want to feed any child who is hungry or any child that that has food. What do they call it? Food. Tolerance? Well, no, I mean that doesn't have the income to have food. Not just like the parents don't have time to give them breakfast, but that they don't have the money to buy the food. Of course we want our students to come to school fed. But how we get to that point of coming to school fed and ready to learn, there are millions of different, well, I won't say millions because we only have 3,700 students. There are hundreds and hundreds of different pathways in terms of what they want to eat, when they want to eat, what their dietary and religious restrictions are, and what families do and how they want to provide that. So we can't just, bulldoze over all of that. We have to respect our community when we make these decisions.
Absolutely agree, Kim. We do need to respect the community. And providing breakfast at the school still shows a huge level of respect because we're not telling parents we're providing the breakfast at school. So if you are like Kim and are waking up and making their kids breakfast in the morning, you can't do that anymore now. No, you can still do that. If you're a parent and you wake up in the morning and you make breakfast, you can still do that. We're not stopping you from doing that. But now we're also...
Can I make a suggestion? Could we direct staff to bring back a proposal for what it would look like to offer breakfast at least to the 15 students from Ocean View we know that the ones who are going to the high school will be accommodated at the high school, according to this, in the cafeteria with some rearranging. I guess that's in our board questions. I'd like to know what we're talking about, if the annex is a possibility to offer lunch or not. It sounds like you're still exploring that. And then
You're
what?
lunch now.
No, breakfast, sorry. It's very late. And then what it would mean, what it would take in terms of funding and logistics to be able to offer it at Marin and Cornell. I mean, I think having the Ocean View people around moving around, speaking as an Ocean View person, offers us some challenges, but it also offers us an opportunity in that we have at least a few students who are going to land at these different sites who are already dependent on the breakfast. And then you said that the older students who are going to be at Ocean View in the fall, you'll continue to do that in the fall at Ocean View for now. I mean, I think, I don't know what what we would end up supporting, but I just think it would help to make this discussion more concrete, to actually know what we're talking about in terms of dollars and logistics, so that we're making an actual decision.
Thank you. I think we also need clarification about that 28,000. It seems like the board was assuming that that was the 6,600 multiplied to 4 different sites, the annex, the high school, Marin, and Cornell. But when I read that, I interpreted the answer as being that that would be coverage for only 2 sites. So if we can...
I think just a detailed financial...
Yeah, if we can look at that, look at those finances so that we know what the numbers are actually for, that would be helpful.
And I know you can't predict exactly the food costs, since you don't yet know how many kids you'd be serving and how many of them would be paying versus not paying. But it seems like the labor cost is the highest piece. So I think I'm hoping you can put together something fairly detailed.
And could we add, would it be possible to develop the survey? It's only a couple of questions, probably. I mean, it's been 5 years since we've asked parents, families, anything about the food program. So I think it behooves us to reach out to the community and get some information.
You've been waiting.
Oh, no, I'm gonna wait till you're done and I'll.
Okay. To kind of add to what Sarah said, I definitely want some more information, but when it comes back, I don't want to have this long discussion and then have it come back again and have it come back again. So I would like to make a motion that we bring back this item for review and action as soon as possible, so if approved, it can be implemented in the next school year. So if anybody would like to second that, that'd be much appreciated.
Second.
Then that is our, that goes into the agenda bin, yeah, to get agendized.
Okay. I am seeking clarity.
Yes. Me too.
Because like Board Member Clark said, I don't want to have to bring this back multiple times either. We need to make a decision. So I'm going to take this one at a time. Does the board want a survey? Because I'm hearing yes to a survey. I'm hearing no, do not do a survey. Does the board want a survey?
Can we do a poll? Okay, I would vote yes for a survey.
No.
I would vote no, just because it's going to slow down the process.
I vote yes. I mean, I think we might get enough interest that it bolsters a decision to do it. What we do with the information, I think we're open.
We don't.
And Board Member Duran? Yes. So that would be 3 to 2 for a survey.
Okay, so if we can do a survey, Julie, if I can do a, well, I'm sorry, hang on one second. And I know it's late, guys, but I really want to make sure I get this right. Claire, the survey that you did, was it just a couple of questions? Okay, so if we did a 2-question survey, how fast could we get it out to the parent community? And would it be a reply by email, or would it be like a doodle pool? I mean, how do we do that? Can we get it? And I'm going to go back to what you said about we want to make sure that this gets done. If I can get a survey out like in 48 hours, and I say you got 5 days to respond, I'm going to have all the information we're going to need before the next board meeting.
That'd be much appreciated if Julie can.
Would that change? Would that change your vote? But, so I guess could we do it? Do you think so?
Absolutely. I
Okay,
mean, it's very
so-
easy to create the survey as long as the language is provided.
Okay, so the goal is a two-question. Claire, you're going to help me on this, or help Sabine on it. 2-question survey. We will get it out this week. We'll give them 5 days to respond. We'll collect the information. Okay.
I'm not sure that you should limit yourself to 2 questions. What if you end up really needing to ask 3 questions, and yet you've said 2 here at the board meeting?
Okay, no more than 3 questions. Can I do that?
Under 5.
It's honest, because I'm going to go back to kind of what you say. If people don't want to take a survey, the more questions you have, the less app they're going to be doing. If I can keep it to
I think it's a yes, no question.
2 to 3.
Would you
Yes.
take advantage of breakfast if it was offered at your elementary school?
Yes.
One question.
Could be 1 question.
Well, but then they're going to wonder, are we talking about a hot breakfast or are we talking about a cold breakfast? What would the, so
No,
because...
I think we're just trying, for me, we're just trying to uncover, if we can come back to a board meeting and we're deciding whether to spend money, I think it will be helpful if we have 15 people who said, I would do this. If we have 5 days, maybe we get nobody. To me, that doesn't mean there's not interest, but at least we have an opportunity to demonstrate that there's, I think the more detail, we're just not going to get people. People aren't going to fill it out.
And it's going to be harder. It's much easier if I just have, and I like that one question, would you take advantage of an elementary breakfast school program, or elementary breakfast? And if they say yes or no, it's up to us to figure out how to figure those kinds of things out. Okay, so that's question one, thank you. The next piece is, I heard, can we come up with a proposal to feed 15 students? If we are going to look at whether we're going to offer breakfast, I think we need to find out what's the feasibility of offering breakfast to kids. Because I absolutely agree with what you said very early on. If you only offer breakfast to folks in the free reduced lunch program, that's a problem. You're outing.
No, we can't do that.
We can't do that.
Nobody
We
wants
can't
to
do that. No one wants to do that. So I just want to make sure that if we're going to offer it, we offer it to kids, right? Okay, thank you. So rather than a proposal, I think what the board needs is not a proposal. What you need is it feasible do we have the space? How can we make the space work? And how much would it cost? Bring back that kind of information. And then if the board says create a program, that is staff's responsibility to create the program, to make it happen. I don't think the board should have to get into the nitty-gritty of how the program works, right? Either you do it or you don't do it. Does that make sense?
Exactly.
Okay.
The board gives instruction, and that.
Okay.
We don't.
So I don't think we need a proposal. What I think we need to bring back is some information on cost, some information on what are the logistics of whether this could work at the annex, at the new high school addition, at Cornell, and at Marin. I'm hearing two very distinct things. Am I mistaken?
I want to clarify a little bit. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't want to come back to the next meeting and then hear a whole proposal about how it can't work. That's not what my instruction would be. I would like to see, this is how much it will cost to
make it happen.
This is what it'll take to make it happen. And then we just vote.
I think that's what I said. I'm agreeing with you. You basically want to know how much would it cost to make it happen, and how would we make the space happen?
Right. But
Hearing two things, cost and space.
Yeah, but not that we can't do it.
Which is why I don't think we should bring a proposal. I think we need to bring back information about what the cost would be and how we would have to, what would the space issue look like. I don't think you need a proposal, because if the board determines yes or no, if you say make this program work, then it's up to us to come up with how we're going to do it.
Got it.
I don't think the board needs a proposal for that unless you're asking for something that I'm not understanding.
Right, no.
When it comes back, it'll be review and action, right? Because if it's review and discussion, we don't even have an opportunity to vote on it.
This is a review in action.
Thank you.
Does that make sense? You
That
kinda got
moves
it?
us to agenda items introduced by the board.
Okay,
We have this one on elementary breakfast. Are there any others?
I have special education updates as a staff report. We're going to work on the timing of that. Interdistrict transfer coming back as a review in action. Equity goals at a later board meeting. School food, I'm going to call this elementary breakfast program. Okay, let's rename it under review in action. Did I get them all?
That's all? Yep. Then we are adjourned.
So Virginia.